Welcome to Art Talk Music. I'm so excited to share with you the second official episode of Art Talk Music. Today I've got some very special guests on. This was a conversation that started before we actually hit record on the record button of the podcast. And it's with my dear friends, Mr. Ryan Montaño, tremendous trumpet player, Billboard charting, award-winning local trumpet player, and Mr. Artha Meadors, who's a tremendous electric bass player, one of my favorite in town, an amazing, spectacular, genius whiz musician who's also leading an award-winning band called Citizens of Tape City. I will make sure to put some links within this podcast so you can check out both of those artists and see what they're up to. Now, it's cool because, like I said, this podcast began before you actually hear us all conversing. And that's why at some point we make jokes and references to the podcast being endorsed or sponsored by a New Mexico brewery. We did indeed crack open a couple cans of beers and have this wonderful conversation you're about to listen to. And I think it came out all right. We talk about all kinds of stuff from music, what makes an elite musician, to the creative process, to some things happening locally here. And it's a lot of fun. I'm really excited for you to hear it and enjoy this podcast. So without further ado, enjoy the show. Welcome to the podcast. This is Art Talk Music.
What was that beep?
I think that's a
sorry, my phone.
beep from the phone of Mr.
Dude, that's like the number one rule of podcasting. You can't have your phone while you're podcasting with your homies.
Yeah, you can. I got to be the dude that responds to
So it's a special day today because we got my two friends,
Responds
Mr.
to the DMs.
Artha Meadors over here on microphone number one, and Mr. Ryan Montaño.
Hello. And we're joined by
Isabella, New Mexico's finest.
Para mio Armenta.
I was going to say Armijo.
Ooh.
Armijo.
All right.
And Mary Jane.
Mary Jane Lewis, that is.
MJL.
So I'm so excited that Art Talk Music is finally up on the road, has finally began, and my two first guests are really good friends of mine, Mr. Artha Meadors and Mr. Ryan Montaño.
Wait, so is this your first one? Like your absolute first one?
No, my first one
you just said it was your first one.
Released. I mean, this is my first podcast with other people, you know.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
Oh, thank you for the busting my balls. I appreciate that. Ooh, cheers.
Speaking of things busting.
There we go, Artie. I think I snapped it a little too fast and handed it to you, bro. So this podcast is officially sponsored by New Mexico's own Happy Camper IPAs. And yeah, I guess the carpet has a little bit to enjoy as well.
Yeah, my bad.
So I'm really excited because these are two amazing musicians, dear friends of mine that,
we're elite New Mexico.
Elite musicians in the state of New Mexico. We were just having a conversation not too long ago about the idea of elite musicians and...
But what actually constitutes elite?
Yeah, well, I was
sorry,
just
I'm trying to take over your
Thank
podcast.
You for that. No, come on now.
Sorry, I'm the host now.
That was a handoff.
Just in case.
You got it, bro. What do you think Ryan Montaño is constitutes an elite musician?
To me, in my mind, an elite musician is someone that can hang with the absolute best of the best. And from my limited amount of traveling, I would say people in Los Angeles, they are some of the most versatile, talented, creative. I think creative's a big component of it, musicians. And that's kind of like one thing that I tell a lot of people. They always ask, like, what's the New Mexico music scene like? And I was like, it's good. There's like a lot of individually talented musicians. However, the pool from which you can draw is not nearly as deep. So if you go to LA and you have like an R&B gig or like a neo soul gig, you have a roster of like 20 different musicians from which you can draw.
Yeah, I agree with that.
On any given instrument, whether that be guitar, whether that be horns, whether it be drums, bass, whatever, you have it.
Right.
But here in Albuquerque, it's like, okay, I have a neo soul gig, and it's like, okay, you have maybe, if you're lucky, 3 or 4 musicians from which you could draw. Most of the time, it's either 1 or 2, and that's That's disappointing. Makes my heart hurt.
It's true. I mean, it's something interesting when you travel, when you get to see those musicians that just kind of like, you can just feel their all around ability to hold any gig. I mean, what you think, but I mean, someone who's got the perfect combination of chops to feel, to groove, to, I mean, general like ability to really play this style correctly.
I'm still inspired by that jam session that we went to
in LA
a few months. Yeah, what was that? Was that at the end of February or the beginning of March?
I think
it was January. That was in NAMM, so that was
no, it wasn't NAMM.
Oh, that was March. That's right. That's right. That's right. Excuse me.
Oh, yeah, because we went back out there.
That's right. It was March, the beginning of March. Yeah, you're right.
It's the beginning of March, and we went to the Federal Bar, which is in Northern Hollywood, and they have an invite only, which I felt was suggestive, but it was an invite only jam session. And
Y'all
just
let
listening
me into the bar, I'm invited.
I got my trumpet too. Come on, let me play.
I mean, come on, like whatever. It is what it is. But just listening to those musicians, like I was most impressed with the drummers, and just I got my iPhone and I went to the audio app and I recorded everything. And like when I would go jog, I would listen to what they were playing. Yeah, and just the grooves and just. Like I think the authority with which they played was like something that I really.
That's true. No, I agree, man. And the phone is such a powerful tool for being able to capture little snippets like that band that you heard, Big Sam's Funky Nation out of New Orleans that was playing up in Denver, and you recorded them, and you love that groove so much, it stuck with you and it resonated so much.
And I straight up ripped it off and wrote a song off of it.
Yo, but hey,
and they didn't know I was sitting off to the side, videotaping them, stealing.
And they're coming
grooves.
to New Mexico soon, so we'll go make amends with them. No worries, we'll go make peace offerings.
And I was just like, hey man, I stole one of your songs.
I always feel weird about that though, with the idea of like recording shows and stuff like that, because I always feel like when you were a kid and before we had the ability to do that, like you would go see a band play, let's say, like one big thing for me was like Primus.
Right.
And I was like,
who's Primus?
Ooh, no, it's Primus sucks. That's the terminology.
I don't know.
Really?
Is that a metal band?
Oh, you really don't know Primus?
I don't know Primus. Sorry if
they're a funk metal band. They're weird. Anyways, I was a big fan of them. Lead singer's name is Les Claypool. He's this kind of out there bass player. So I would
monster.
He's a great artist.
Yeah,
as a technical bass player.
To his own.
But I was a huge fan. So what I would do is I would shed all of his stuff. I'd be like, okay, cool. How's he doing that? And I would figure out my own way of playing it. And then I would go see him. And then I'd be like, oh, that's how he's doing it? And then I would be, because I couldn't sit there and record it or go to a show or get a video of it.
Yeah.
Like I had to come up with.
What? I like the sound. I'm nervous. I'm trying to be in the moment in this podcast, and it helps.
Clutch.
Sorry, I'm making popping sounds. Sorry, guys.
And so like,
I'll just drink beer.
No, but like that whole idea of like the fact of I couldn't look it up online. I couldn't go back to a recording and hear it over and over again. Well, that's what I did when I would hear the recording. That is like I had to develop my own thing. Or if you go see like a trumpeter that you really loved live, you'd be like, oh, yo, you took away the feeling. You couldn't go back and like transcribe that whole thing. So what you would do when you got home is you would come up with your own vibe. You're like, oh, I think the lick went this way. I think it felt this way. So you're developing kind of your ear and your memory, but you're also developing your own thing.
I think that's a great way of putting it, because I just went and saw this trumpeter from, I think he's from Barbados, Etienne Charles, the outpost here in New Mexico. Tom Goralnik brought him in.
Jealous.
And I don't remember, like I didn't record the show, but I just watched, and I was really impressed with his, he just wasn't over the top, but like you were talking about, you kind of come back with the vibe, and then you start, and then I would start playing, and it's like, okay, that dude wasn't trying to be anybody else other than himself. And I was like, oh, okay, like I really respected that about it. And that inspired me to kind of just be who I think I am at that point. But getting back to what you said about, going off of their vibe, I think that's a good thing.
I think that's something that we're missing now. And I don't know if it's created more individuality or a kind of lost individuality with people, because we have so much access to different things and different look, and and revisiting them. If I love Knower, I can listen to that song for weeks on end on YouTube or Spotify.
Is that a song by Primus?
You don't know Noah?
It is.
Is it really
I feel like the uncool kid at the party.
All right, okay.
Hey guys, I brought a Bud Light Lime for everybody to drink.
Hey guys, I don't know who promises, but
That's actually a true story.
That's
by the
actually a very true story. He did. Ryan
Bud Light,
brought.
and everyone looks at him funny.
He brought Bud Light Live to a party where everybody was like a brewmaster and or like a professional brew reviewer.
Well, first of all, I thought it rude. I thought it rude to show up empty-handed.
That's right. That's right.
And I didn't at the time. I wasn't really drinking beer, and I was like,
I guess I could see how it's insulting.
No, and it was perfectly fine. And they all.
Were you there at that party?
Dude. I'm the one that invited you.
No, because I went there with Sammy.
No, it was my friend's house. And so no, they were all cool with it. They looked at you like, oh, this dude don't know who we are, but okay, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
I know. I was all excited because I wanted to be like, oh, this guy's cool, man. He brought us gifts. So I was like, hey guys, I brought some Bud Light Lime, and the guy goes, thanks. Yeah, just go put it over there. And I remember thinking, I was like, wow, why is he so angry?
He has some like crazy like brew from like Belgium and like Portland and this triple stouts and stuff. I'm like, bro, I'm like, oh, I like what you did. That was a good gesture.
That's
high
hilarious.
Five.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, high five that one out, man. I still appreciate it.
I wanted to get back to your point, and Claudia, I'd like to get your input too. So, I was sitting there, Big Sam Funky Nation. I was really inspired by what they were playing, and I was videotaping them because I wanted to learn. Is that at what point does it become plagiarism or ripping someone off, and what point does it become inspiration, like to the point of Robin Thicke and Pharrell?
I mean, here's the way I see it. The way I see it is that it's always been total ripping off. I mean, since I remember Beethoven, Bach, Mozart. There's literally concertos that are. This is a music nerd. Exactly. This is a total music nerd thing. From music history class at the university, you would hear actual songs that were inspired by an older composition from a different composer. So they were quite literally ripping off a theme and going in a totally different direction with it. And so the idea of when does it become plagiarism? I mean, definitely when it becomes blurred lines, because I think Marvin Gaye's estate got how many millions of dollars?
But I don't think that's not what it was. The Marvin Gaye one, that one still it set a horrible precedent, because the reason that it even won was based off of like something stupid like the cowbell. So now if you're going to tell me that this whole family gets, the Marvin Gaye family wins because of a cowbell, then it's like, okay, well, Jimi Hendrix family needs like everybody to pay them up for every last white Strat that has been played.
I mean,
was that really what did it? Was the cowbell?
That's what it was.
I thought it was because like they were such arrogant jerks that the judge like didn't like how they weren't taking like the litigation seriously, and then he ruled against them in like kind of in a matter of spite. I don't know if that was true though. I think I heard that somewhere.
That makes way more sense, but still at the end of the day, it set a horrible precedent.
I agree.
So then it's like, okay, well, who's the inventor of the snare drum? Because his family, they need like reparations right now.
It's true. Without a doubt, we can go down the list of artists that need, back, are owed back money, back taxes, so to speak. It's like, without a doubt, there are debts owed. But the idea of music plagiarism, or the idea of ripping off a groove or hearing a beat and then going off of that. I mean, like speaking from my personal experience, I remember growing up and hearing different artists talk about hearing a groove and almost taking their favorite bands, mixing them with another one of their favorite bands, and then another one of their favorite artists, and the three of them is kind of what they would comprise their own sound as.
And I think that's what...
I mean, that's definitely more, respectable, because then you are blending all these different things to make your own thing, which is totally its own thing.
Exactly.
But this idea of being inspired by a beat, something like Big Sam's Funky Nation in Denver, or hearing this song from Marvin Gaye, it's that same notion of saying, oh my God, like I love the way that makes me feel. I want to take that similar feeling that makes me feel that way and make me want to move that way, and like recreate it in my own way so that I can enjoy that for myself. And obviously there is a selfish, and obviously there is a matter of knowing, like Vanilla, what was it? Vanilla White? What was it? Vanilla Ice?
Vanilla Ice.
And David Bowie. Oh, you know what I'm talking about? Come on now. I mean, there's blatant things that are pointing out in music history that are like that. that sometimes slip through the cracks and the artist didn't get any compensation for it. And there's also the other way where artists did get compensation, like Marvin Gaye.
So
what do you think? Yeah,
there's a couple different points I want to step on, but like me personally, first I got a statement, then I got a question. Mm-hmm. So the way that I view music and the way that when I'm creating music, and I create music with like my band, Citizens of Tape City,
which is an amazing band and everyone should go listen to.
Bandcamp.
Bandcamp.
iTunes yet?
Not yet. We'll get there. Yeah, we need to get on that bandwagon, right? Anyways, the way that I kind of like fashion that band or anything original I write is that I look at my record collection and it's like I look at the empty spot and I go like, oh, well, there's no band that between Living Colour and Maxwell, I don't see anything in between there. Or Mars Volta and Portishead. It's another Primus.
For those that can't see, I just had a blank stare in my face. I was looking off in the distance, trying to make sense of all these random names.
So, but I always want to create music that is like, oh, I don't have that in my record collection.
Right.
Nobody's done that yet. Or I just want to hear it for myself. How about I create that?
So is that your intention when you write a song? Like for Citizens of Tape City, it's like you go there with that specific intention of I'm not going to create, or I'm going to create a sound that I don't believe has been created before? Or is it just I'm inspired by A, B, C, and D, and I'm going to fuse them together, and this is the product of those inspirations?
The latter. It's like definitely the latter of like I'll be like, yo, I'm writing this kind of crazy math rock guitar part, and then I go, well, I'm not that type of bass player, so how about I play like an R&B bass line? Or it's like, well, I'm not that type of drummer, I'll play like a post-hardcore drum part to it, and just try to make those worlds fit. So that's how I view kind of like,
right.
If you want to say like, you know, you're stealing these ideas and stuff like that. So that's what I'm viewing as. My question now is, and this is going to probably get really deep. So what is the difference between like a hip hop producer using a sample from an album and using that for the beat, and a guitar player using an old like Albert King lick?
Man, that's a point that's really interesting.
Because isn't that both sampling?
Oh yeah, you're right. No, you're without a doubt.
So if you're going
totally
like
correct, Gary Clark Jr. to you know,
if you want to say
Tribe Called Quest,
Miles Davis and Christian Scott, they have similar styles. He does take the vibe from it. Is he taking actual licks? Probably not. But is he taking the vibe? The first thing you're going to point to is be like, oh, yo, that's Miles Davis.
Yeah, you're right.
Isn't the hip hop producer, when they sample something, it's more recognizable because they're taking the work essentially as a whole, as that one snippet, whereas the guitar player is just taking a lick from a singular instrument. So therefore, it may not resonate with more people.
Yeah, it's not as recognizable because the actual sound clip is coming from the actual sample of that jazz song that hip hop producer did. This is something that's so interesting that you asked because I've been studying some North Indian classical music for the past couple of years, and my teacher, who's the son of the late great maestro of the Sarod, Ali Akbar Khan, Alam Khan.
Is that a metal band?
Yeah, they toured with Sugar.
Alam Khan has actually an amazing hip hop North Indian mix band that we'll plug and put in the liner notes later. But Alam and I were having the conversation of him saying this exact thing of rappers and rap beats in general. Like, there is no producer that is authentic. They're all thieves. And the whole world of hip hop and sampling in general, as well as what a drum beat is, what a drum machine produces. I mean, even going as far back to say as an incredible musician as Jay Dilla was, that was all thievery.
But what do you think about that? What is it? But that's like saying the idea, okay, like if I go play...
They're all sounds that are not their own, that were there before, that someone else created, and they are using to create something that comes out to be a song.
Yeah, but within that idea of like, maybe I'm taking the word like thief too seriously, but it's like you could make that distinction, but you have to say like, okay, well, Jimi Hendrix used a Strat, and now we're in 2018, if they need to get a Jimi Hendrix tone, what are they going to do?
They're going to get a Strat, and they're going to get the Marshall stacks. Yeah, you're right.
They're going to thieve a sound.
Yeah, you're right.
That's already been established. Mm-hmm. So it's like the distinction is still there. It's like, I still don't see a difference between somebody,
where I could see the line drawn, and I didn't bring this up to Alam, but it's different when you have a band like the Grid band out of New Orleans, who Citizens of Tape City, myself and the Grid are all label mates of Bubble Bath Records out of New Orleans. The Grid is a hip hop band. The Grid is a hip hop band that plays. They're all musicians that are playing these incredible hip hop beats. Now, but they are also, I mean, they do so many shows that are dedicated to specifically recreating Jay Dilla songs or, you know, so-and-so songs. And they have so many original songs they've also now put out. They put out an EP called Evasive Maneuvers. And, you know, I mean, it's different when you've got a band actually playing. Yeah, it's getting hot in here. A band actually playing the beats as opposed to actual, you know, a drum machine playing the beats.
So that's kind of like this weird thing that you get put into when you think about. So somebody came up with the, like, Robert Glasper is kind of like, he's the start of that, really, because we had like, we could say like Ahmed Jamal, and then we had Jay Dilla, who made Stakes is High for De La Soul using an Ahmed Jamal sample. And then we had Robert Glasper, who was sampling the Jay Dilla version of Ahmed Jamal. So he's doing a cover of a cover of a cover. Copy of a copy of a copy. Somebody cue the 9 Inch Nails.
So when you guys are creating music, at what point do you essentially throw it to the dumpster and say, you know what, this is just a ripoff?
It's too close.
Or this is something that's genuinely, it's inspiration and it's taking its own form? Because for me personally, 90% of it's like, oh, that's just ripping off so-and-so. This is ripping off, you know, this person. This is ripping off that groove. This is ripping off that vibe. And then that's to me, that's the biggest mirror of my compositions.
I don't know. You have to take it from a couple different standpoints. Like, me personally, like, if I get to the point where I go, like I said, like, this is me personally, like, if I'm taking these different elements and I go, yo, I'm taking element A, B, and C, because that's the way I write. I'm like, I don't take it all from like one genre. I don't say, hey, 90s hardcore punk, I'm taking all from that, you know? I go 90s hardcore punk, then I go, yo, Fred Hammond, like early 90s gospel. You like, and then I take these things and I put them together and I go, yeah, if I'm able to pull off all those styles really well, I'm like walking out the room like, yeah, my man. But I get what you're saying when you're like, oh, you make something so close to heart and something so obvious that you're just like, nah, man. But you know who made a whole career and is making millions of dollars off of that?
Every smooth jazz artist ever.
Oh, even more than them. Bruno Mars.
Preach.
He is hands down king of nostalgia.
Thievery. Oh my goodness.
It's not
with his latest album?
I'm not even going to. That's all.
His old
dude, that's New Jack Swing.
Funk, soul.
That's like 80s with like 90s. With today's
it's all
like
90s
recording
R&B.
Contemporary.
That's the whole reason why he's wearing all those like
80s outfits.
90s, man. Nobody's seen New Jack Swing. Anyways. But he's the king of this idea of like, oh, I'm going to rip this off, but I'm going to rip it off cold. When he did like Uptown Funk, he's like, oh, I'm using the Gap Band and I'm going to steal from the time. And he made it very apparent and he did it really, really well. His first album, that was like all kinds of SoCal, like reggae rock. That was taken from all that kind of Sublime-esque ideas.
I want to be a billionaire. That one?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
No, today, Lazy Song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't feel I don't feel like doing anything.
Yeah, he's taking.
Put my hand down my chonus, or what was the word?
Yeah, live your
something
life.
like that.
So, but I mean, if you think about it, like he's made a career out of it, but he's been unapologetic about it, which I think is a really good thing. And so it's like
that's important
until he runs into like a Marvin Gaye type family.
Oh my God! Yeah.
You know what? Make it so bad.
Excuse me, sir. That song sounds a lot like our. We're gonna.
That's what he did with Uptown Funk, though.
Yeah.
Him and Mark Ronson wrote Uptown Funk, and they said, "Okay, this is cool. It's going to be a hit." And then after they released it, they said, "Okay, we're going to put the rights to the Gap Band on here because."
Did they give the rights to the Gap Band on that?
They put to Charlie Wilson because they were like, "Oh, because they saw the whole Marvin Gaye thing go down, so they were like, oh, can I cuss on this thing?"
Come on now, absolutely.
Fuck that. They were like, oh, fuck that. We ain't getting sued, so let's just put Charlie Wilson on this motherfucker right now.
But didn't they have like 20 other writers with that or something? There's like several. Wasn't there a producer from Albuquerque or something that was part of that?
Dude, I don't know, but I knew they put on a couple people because they didn't want to get sued.
Mm-hmm. That's a smart move.
But the people who were actually in the track, in the album, like who actually did recording, Bruno Mars did the drums, Mark Ronson did almost everything else, and the bass player, Jamario, did the actual bass.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun.
Isn't that like every bass player's dream to come up with like, what's that one? Don't.
Another one bites the dust. Oh, or yeah.
Like to me, that would seem like if you're a bass player, you want to write, or even My Girl. Is that James Jamerson?
I want to say so, but I don't think so.
To me, like I don't know, like as a trumpet player, like you want to be that trumpet player that like did that iconic like on the Beatles. What was that tune that had that piccolo trumpet? That Beatles tune. I forget what it's called. Penny Lane. Penny Lane.
I'm the last one to ask.
See, you guys spent like the past half hour talking about guitar stuff, and I'm just sitting here all quiet.
No,
you bring up the one trumpet reference. You're like, what?
The Beatles, though. The Beatles. Come on now.
No, they have the Penny Lane.
No, I get the analogy though.
Right, you want to do that, or Chuck Mangione, Feel So Good. I mean, say what you want about that song, but
iconic.
But I mean,
or Justin
awesome.
Bieber. You want to be that trumpet player, right?
I mean, I want
to be the dude who did Careless Whisper, but that's me.
Come on, right? There's a part of you. There's a part of you that does, as well as there's a part of me that doesn't, because the reality of just creating it is special. But
because it's mainstream.
How many of those? No, not at all.
Yeah,
how many of those people do you think got to benefit from that theme that they made?
Oh, they probably got $300 for the session, and then that was it.
There's a part of me that realizes that, as well as just says, just in general, to create an iconic theme, first of all, let me say, would be amazing. And of course, you dream about doing something like that, or having a song that has iconic themes that you started and people go crazy right away, But anyways.
No, at least I'm not making noise, okay? You just try to cover up my phone. I'm trying to answer a text. This guy mad because he's making this popping sound. Yeah, you go make popping sounds. I'm just checking a silent text.
It helps with being nervous. Do you guys actually think that the Bird Lines song sounds like Got to Give It Up?
Yeah,
I think it's inspired.
Yes,
I think it's inspired, but I mean, how many songs are inspired by?
But that's like the thing. Like, you know what I was playing this weekend on a gig? I was playing, and I didn't realize it till I called it, and I was like, we were playing Billie Jean. I was like, oh, and you're doing that drum beat, and then the next thing on the list was No Doubt, Hella Good, yeah, dun 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 dun. It's the same drum beat. So I'm like, oh, why is it Quincy Jones going after No Doubt? Like, once again, Marvin Gaye family set the precedent. Why'd you steal it? Why'd you take those dudes down?
Speaking of Quincy Jones, did you guys read that interview that he did, right?
Oh my God.
Which one?
That dude,
where he bashed on
don't give a fuck.
Michael Jackson and everybody else.
Yeah.
So
I read snippets of it, not the whole thing.
I listened to that song that Michael Jackson, that he said Michael Jackson, he ripped off Billie Jean from, what was it, Donna Summer tune, right?
I forgot.
I can't remember what it was, but I was like, He made it sound more egregious than it actually appeared.
I don't know. I don't think I was mad about the whole Marvin Gaye thing because I was like, it just set an ugly precedent.
Keith Urban said that same thing. He said it's scary. He goes, you almost don't want to touch certain tunes. Like, before, so Ramsey Lewis, do you guys know who Ramsey Lewis is?
Yeah.
Piano player. He covered Got to Give It Up as instrumental. And I really liked that. And the thing that I liked about the beat was, about that groove, was the offbeats of the piano. Dun, 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 dun. That's what I was like, man, that would be really cool to like use that as a foundation of inspiration and then create a song and see where it goes.
Yeah.
And then now, like, I won't even touch it because if Pharrell and Robin Thicke are going to be subject to litigation, then it's like, I don't even want to touch that. And then Keith Urban said the same thing. He's like, man, there's certain songs that are off limits because it's scary because it sets a precedent that you might be sued and you don't want to end up touching those things. What's up?
See, and that's how I feel.
Claudio's doing Instagram.
Me, what? I don't care. Maybe I'm just on a level that I don't care.
You're on an elite level.
I'm on an elite. I'm on the elite Albuquerque level.
Oh,
was that too close to home? Too soon?
That hurt.
Hashtag. So here's a good example on the Tape City EP.
Bandcamp.
Bandcamp. Thank you. Tape City, baby.
COTC.
COTC.
Hashtag.
There's a song. The EP is called "She Like Me," and the singer Joseph Scott, who's like amazing. Him and I, like, we bonded over a lot of references. Like we bonded over like pop culture references, musical references. We just constantly do that. That's just what we do. Like if you have a conversation with us and you don't watch enough Cartoon Network, you're about to be lost.
Freakazoid.
Oh, runs around in underwear. Freakazoid.
Chimpanzee.
Yeah, see, we there. So
I thought I was the only one that watched that.
So what he did is he made this one reference. He took from the song. I forget what the group was named, but the song is "She's playing hard to leave, but I don't believe she like me. She like me." So anybody who was heard me sing. But if you were like a black kid in the early 90s, you heard that song all the time. So when we do that reference, it was this artistic statement. And then we take it later into another song where he distorts it and he makes this really bad harmony. And he does it again. And I'm like, yo, as much as better.
Yeah.
Dang. Anyways, and so as much as I want to sit here and be like, I was scared for a minute because I'm like, oh, yo, do we need to register this? Is it a sample? Is it, what do we call this?
Just because it said "she like me," or he took "she like me" and then he flipped it around.
He took the melody and he kind of chopped it and then he gnarled it up the second time around.
Yeah, Joseph does that though in a way that is so like you almost can't. You're almost like, damn, that was from that. What?
Yeah, if you knew, like, once again, if you grew up in the same like era that I did, in the same culture that I did, you're like, oh, you throw your hands up on your head, you're like, that was great.
Yeah,
he did that. But I had to sit there, and I was nervous as hell. Like, yo, dude, do we need to register? What are we doing? How do we?
Yeah, right. How do you approach that?
You need to change the lyric. And at the end of the day, we were just like, oh,
it's different,
bro.
There's all kinds of songs.
Any
that have the
press is
same
good
time.
press. Negative press is good press.
Yeah, if
controversy.
well, I'm gonna say, yeah, if that band comes after us, I'm like, oh, I don't remember y'all name. I have to Google it every time, but I'm like, oh, dude, I remember the song though.
Did you guys ever watch Seabear and Jamal?
That was like a little bit past me.
Really?
Well, I'm like, what?
About that.
I'm about like 7 years older than y'all.
What? How old are you, Artie?
I'm 35.
How old
30.
you are? I'm 28.
So you're 5. Yeah.
Yeah, you 7
That's
years
not the
old.
same. It's at the same time. Seabear and Jamal. Tone Woke.
Yeah, that's when I just stopped. Like I was watching like Duckman.
Duckman.
Oh, see, you ain't real.
I know Darkwing Duck and DuckTales.
Quack, quack, quack.
Duckman was not on that level. Duckman it was what's his name? God dang it. He's like one of my favorite like characters now. Fuck, can't think of his name. But yeah, Duckman, that was one of my favorite shows around that time.
All right.
Probably one of the most underrated like adult cartoons ever. It was like Adult Swim before Adult Swim.
Not as good as Robot Chicken, I bet.
Ooh, Robot Chicken was good.
Different.
My favorite Robot Chicken skit, the one that sold it for me. And this might seem a little bit sacrilegious, but they had Jesus was walking on water, and then they had a banana peel floating on top of the water, and then he steps on it and he slips and he falls. I thought that was the funniest thing, and at the time I felt like, I shouldn't be laughing at this, but it was so funny, and ever since that I just started watching it, and I don't know.
No, it was the Star Wars special. Oh my God, the first one, I was done. He had Chewbacca in the mirror, and he was combing his hair like a Fonzie from Happy Days. He goes, I was like, that's genius. Come on, folks. Nobody's laughing at this.
Not as genius as Dave Chappelle when he did a black white supremacist that was blind.
Oh my God.
Oh my, and
That's straight up
where their
genius
heads
right there.
explode.
Oh my God, that's my
You
favorite.
ain't messing with
Show us your face. We want to see your face.
Show us your face, Cletus.
Oh my God, Dave Chappelle is just the master. That show for me was, and his block party show. Me and my brother were talking about that earlier today. That's something that's forgotten a lot. A lot of people don't talk about that. Well, a couple of my friends do, but that whole DVD was amazing.
was like real
amazing. Yeah.
Why does he's changed so much? I was just listening to him on a YouTube today. He was, I think it was one of his stand-up specials. Like, man, dude has just changed, like in his appearance, his voice, everything.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. It's
I
weird.
mean, wouldn't you change after dealing with everything that you've been dealing with? From
I
what
guess.
you
No,
hear
for sure.
about his story.
But I mean, it's
Going
like
to Africa,
like compared to what he was
life.
like when he was doing Chappelle's show seasons 1 and 2, and then now it's like Like
He's a whole other
you go
person.
down that rabbit hole
Whole
of
nother person.
Illuminati conspiracies on YouTube, and then you're like, oh,
Yo,
is there
but
something to that?
That's a whole other conversation.
I think I can only imagine that you would transform into a totally. I mean, obviously, as the facts go that say that every 7 years our entire organism changes and we are completely different. How could we not be different after immense things happen in our life, like our TV network throwing millions and millions and millions of dollars, basically to sell out? Because Dave Chappelle's situation was that they wanted him to be more politically correct for the white people or something along
Right.
the lines of that. And,
I get
and
it.
it made him totally say, no, fuck you. Like, not just fuck you, but I'm going to go across the universe to go find people that don't know who the fuck I am, aren't going to treat me with anything because of the fame that I've gotten, and just be back to check back in with being a human being.
Okay, so real talk right now. If a record company or some sort of publishing deal or endorsement deal came through and they offered you guys $50 million, $50 million
Come on, now,
to create an art, to create something on the
doesn't take
guitar, or
much.
create like Citizens of Tape City music that wasn't true to who you are, would you do it? Would you pass up the $50 million?
It depends on what are the stipulations about it.
It also depends on if you love the idea of being famous more so than making music. Right? And I've thought about that so much.
I think that's a great
There's plenty
point.
of like
There's so
artists
much.
out there who will go, they're like, oh, yo, I just need to get on this level.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get this money, or even I get this money. Like, I just need to get on this level. And I understand that this isn't exactly the music that I want to put out, but I know this is the music that's going to sell. I mean, I think that's fair. And some
It's
people,
an end, a means to an end, is I think a lot of people look at it. It's like, I'm going to do this in the short term for this long-term
exactly.
gain.
Here's something that
and
I
I've
think
seen a
about.
lot of people do that. And that, to me,
But man-
that's something that's hard for me personally to go that avenue. But a lot of people do that. And then when you see how it manifests in their career later on, you're like, oh, okay. I see what you were doing, and I see how you made it work. So it's like, is that necessarily a bad thing?
okay,
I've seen a lot of people in contemporary jazz do that very same thing.
all right, here comes the question then. So, like, $50 million, what are we trying to change? Like, what are they trying to do? They try to put us in, like, NSYNC suits? And
I mean, that's what I'm saying.
they're
And
trying to
here's just something I want to bring up, because when you say $50 million and when you say this idea of signing with a record label, what you are saying is that you are going to take on an image and you are going to become that image. And you are not just going to become that image, but be related to that image for the rest of your life. And those songs
yes
that you
and no.
become famous
Yes and no.
for
Bro,
initially will be the songs that you will sing once you are old and out of money and need to go back on the road to make some more money.
Right. I've seen what you're saying. Is it? And I don't think that you're necessarily branded with that for the rest of your life. I think and I've seen, and I can't really name them specifically, but I've seen contemporary jazz artists who go and they put out something in like the smooth jazz vein or something a little bit more commercial. They get really known there, and then they break off, and then they're like, you know what, I'm going to do my thing now. And all of a sudden they have this audience that they built and they brought along with them.
Right.
And then they decided, okay, I'm going to do my thing now. And they take that audience with them. And it's like, okay, I see what you did. A means to an end. Like, is that necessarily a bad thing?
no.
It's not a bad thing, as well as
If you can see-
you got to realize
yeah, I'm
that
sorry, you go.
those audiences won't always follow you, and just some of those people will follow you. Someone like John Mayer is a wonderful example for that. For me,
And he talks about that
in my
personally.
relationship, with music in general, he's been always kind of a looming figure as far as someone who I would love to have modeled my career after.
Dude, he's my hero.
Yeah, well, he's a lot of people's heroes, man, for everything he was able to do. But he talks about, like
Jennifer
you said,
Aniston, dude.
he talks about, besides his Playboy interview, he talks about amazing transformations of his own career and his own voice and his own sound, and saying, I'm going on a journey. And some people don't follow me and don't go with me, but some people do. In his, Americana phase of,
Which is my favorite album, Born and Raised.
Born and Raised is beautiful,
All-time
man.
favorite
I
John
love
Mayer
it.
album.
I love it. I'm not hating on it at all. But what I am saying is that he has been that example that you're talking about of someone who started and became famous for Your Body's a Wonderland. And,
He
all
talks
these
about that
songs,
song and
Daughters.
how dated that song was for him and how he hates playing it.
And
I don't know if hate's
and not
the right
just
word.
that, but you got to think about how much money that song made him, or how much money Daughters made him. Even though he talks about himself, that song pigeonholes him as being that guy.
Daughters does, or just
Daughters did, because it
Really?
was his third song that was Bodies of Wonderland. It was
No,
there was another
Daughters
song.
was down the road, dude.
yeah, daughters
Yeah,
is
'cause it
his
was,
second album.
But his
Yeah.
but I'm
Nah,
talking
Daughters
about
was like
but I'm talking about his big
third.
hits. But I'm talking about his
Oh, so it was before a trio.
So Heavier Things was, I could be wrong. Heavier Things was the second album, right?
Yeah, I like
So,
because
yeah.
I'm such a John Mayer nerd.
Heavier Things. I think it went
go.
Room for Squares, Heavier Things, and then Continuum.
Please look that shit up.
Yeah.
Thank
I'm
you.
pretty sure I'm right. Ugh, that's too bad that I know that thing. But no, yeah, he talks about. I've read that in several interviews where he's like, yeah, like Your Body's a Wonderland is just like a dated song, and it's like, but that's also what put him on the
he
map.
belongs like he owes that now for all of his audience members. You know what I'm saying? Almost not every time, but almost every time that he goes and plays. And I think about that, and not just I think about that, but I experienced that when I went and saw him live. Finally,
I was at that same concert, but he didn't play Your Body Was a Wonderland.
He didn't, but
Right.
he put himself into that box and sealed himself up as far as saying, "Let me be your greatest hits concert for me to make a little bit of money."
He didn't play my favorite songs at that
Which was which
concert.
song? What's your favorite song?
If I ever get a rap living,
Oh, that's a good
Born
song.
and Raised. That's my all-time favorite song.
All time? For reals?
I have to say, because it's a song that I keep going back to, and I'd be like, man, like, I love this song. That Rosie I really like from The Search for Everything. That's a new album that's really great.
That's a good one too.
I don't know, man. Like, and I hate like anybody that influences me
He's
that
got
much.
a lot of good ones, man.
Dude, he has so many good, and I hate that
You
he
got a favorite
influences
song
me
by
that much.
John Mayer Hardy?
Y'all know how y'all start talking about John Mayer that I would instantly quiet, right?
You don't like
Because
John
you're looking on your phone for something you're supposed
I
to
know.
be.
No,
He's looking at
I'm looking
Instagram
at
models. What was that
girls,
Instagram model?
Let's not worry about me, man.
Summer Rae, what'd you say?
Don't worry about me, yo.
Dude.
So here we go.
Does that bother you? Are we
Room
not
for
allowed to talk about
squares.
Summer Rae?
No, we're totally allowed to talk about
Does that
anything
bother
want to
you
talk
that she has 20 million followers
No,
and
no,
literally
no.
it's squarely because of her ass?
I am happy for that beautiful ass.
That doesn't bother you?
No.
No talent? That was
No.
given to her. Well, to a certain
Hey,
extent.
I'm happy for her,
Wait,
man.
I missed this part. Who?
We're,
Summer Rae, SOMMERRAY.
You don't know who Summer
She has
Rae
like
is?
20 million followers.
she's a beautiful
and it's
Instagram
all
model.
because she has the most amazing
Giant.
rear end
Okay.
ever.
Amber Rose.
Yeah,
Kim
but,
Kardashian.
Oh, you're into super
but there's
thick
a
girls.
difference. But there's a difference of someone who became famous because of social media, as opposed to Summer Rae, or I'm sorry, Amber Rose or Kim Kardashian, who didn't become famous from those things, but from other things.
From what things?
Yeah. Okay.
Amber
anyways,
Rose.
Here we go. Here we go.
Anyways, all right.
Room for Square. Heavier Thing.
Ooh.
Called it.
Continuum.
Continuum is my
Battle
favorite
Studies.
album.
Battle Studies,
Yeah.
Born and Raised, Paradise Valley.
Shite.
Wait, are we talking? We're talking. Are you skipping out on the trio?
Keep going.
But we missed
No,
in the trio.
we're
The
skipping
trio
the
stuff
trio.
in between there.
We're doing his
So
album.
after Paradise Valley, it is whatchamacallit, the Search for Everything.
God damn.
You really do like John Mayer.
Yeah,
Maybe more than I do.
See,
bro.
and it bothers me how much I'm influenced by him because I don't like being influenced because then it makes me think that I'm just like a whore for whatever they put out.
right.
I mean,
Can dig.
Like if you look at my YouTube suggestions, it's all seriously, it's all Joe Rogan. And I was like, God
Joe
damn.
Rogan, goddamn you, amazing podcaster gentleman. That
And then I was like, well, hold on now. Like, am I just like one of these whores that just listens to like whatever? And I like, I don't think I am. Well, I hope not. I don't know.
so what was Oprah's book of the month?
Wait, what? I didn't hear that. Sorry.
I said, what was Oprah's book of the month?
Oh,
Just
50 Shades of Grey.
That was 2 years ago. Anyway.
come on now.
That was 2 years ago in October.
No, my whole thing with John Mayer is I like him. I love the interviews he does. I think he's
See, I can't stand his interviews. I have to separate his music from his interviews.
Really?
I think
I like his interviews because he speaks
he's real.
very
Talk-
real,
he's
and he
real?
speaks very widely.
'Cause he be
yeah.
Talk about a dude that thinks his shit does not stink and that his...
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
even-
he
no,
does.
but he's
he
even
does.
said
He's not
that.
getting a
But
John
you
Mayer.
gotta
bit.
But he's
But
even
you gotta
said that.
be
He's like,
confident about your shit, right?
What is it? I heard one interview. He's like, I'm a recovering
Ego addict. I watched that one.
Yep, yep,
NBC
that's
or
a
whatever,
good- that's a good
CNBC or
pod-
whatever that
yeah,
was.
that's a good interview. Shit.
And I don't have a problem with him admitting, that he stay away from those situations because he doesn't want to go there. But when he talks about his music, and I hear a lot of artists doing that, and they're like, oh well, there's a video that he talks about. Let's see, what was that one that he did with what was that guitar player that he wrote a song with, and Steve Jordan was in there. In Repair, who was that guitar player?
Charlie Hunter.
Yeah. So they did that Charlie Hunter, and he's talking about this song is the biggest song that I've ever written. Not in terms of how many songs it's sold, but the actual sound. And they talk about their music, and I hear a lot of, not just John Mayer, I hear a lot of artists doing this. they talk about their music as if it's the greatest thing, is it's going to have this huge residual impact. And it's like, at the end of the day, dude, like, you're probably going to be forgotten, you know, in 50 years, which is fine, whatever. Like, just talk with your craft about a little bit humility. And I don't hear that with him. I don't hear that
But you
with a
ain't
lot
gonna
of
get
people.
that from John. We all know that. You know what I'm saying? John, from the start, at least I've recognized him as someone who is confident in his craft to the point to where he talks about how great his thing is.
Is it
And
really? I mean, is it that great? It's good. I get
fucking-
it.
It's pretty fucking good.
I agree. But I mean, like,
What you gonna say, Artie? Go ahead.
but why talk about it in those terms? Like, let other people do the talking for you. Don't sit there and spout
That's
out
true.
how
Nah,
great
and I agree with that.
Nah. I can't sign up for that one because we have too many artists who, throughout the years, who are just like, "Oh, I'm the dude. I'm the motherfucker right here." So when we talk about like Miles Davis,
Tekashi 69. What's his name?
oh my god,
Oh, is that the dude that has the 69
no,
tattoo on
don't
his
say
face?
that because that's every SoundCloud rapper.
Oh.
Yeah, I said it. I'm calling you out, little
Did you guys
Xan.
see that meme on Instagram where they had a Chipotle bag, and they're like, all these SoundCloud rappers look like a bag of Chipotle?
They're getting real at this point. But I mean, no, take it back. Like, rappers have always been like, historically, have always been like, yo, my stuff is the best.
I'm the best.
My
I'm the
shit's
best.
But that's part of the culture.
That's
of the
part
hip hop
of the
culture.
and that's who said that's not part of the jazz culture either?
Thank you. I was just about to bring up
Miles
Charlie
Davis
Parker.
didn't make any
I was
qualms.
just about to bring up some of the saxophonists that would have chopping sessions.
Bro, you know what?
Yeah, insane.
What was somebody told me, hey, and this is close to you. They're like, hey, do you know what the trumpeter's handshake is?
Oh,
Hi.
yep.
Dude, are you kidding? I greet all the trumpeters like that.
Hi.
You're an amazing trumpet player. I
Shut
am
up.
so humbled.
Yeah.
No, it's hi. I'm better than you.
You know, and with trumpet players, that's a real thing. That is a real thing. And especially like
shit.
if you could play a note higher than another trumpet player, it doesn't matter your tone, it doesn't matter your articulation, it doesn't matter the lick. If that note is higher, then all of a sudden that's the equivalent of like insulting someone's mother or insulting or slapping someone's girlfriend on the
Bro,
butt.
I didn't know it got that deep. But my
I'm
point,
serious. That's what it's about.
But my point being is that like everybody want to look at like here's the problem that I think jazz musicians and really academic
We're going to
jazz
get into a good subject. The problem with jazz musicians.
the problem with
I'm rubbing my hands together. Can you hear
jazz
that?
musicians is that they don't see themselves different than rappers today because it's the same mentality.
You think that's the problem with jazz musicians in terms of like their bravado?
In terms of their bravado, it's the same bravado.
Because I would argue the reason they have that bravado is because they know so much musically, and they think they're superior to all other forms of music. Because I know half
There
diminished
is that.
251.
There is
Okay,
I know
that's
all
the
the scale
same thing
degrees.
in hip hop. It's like I know the 5 pillars of hip hop. Oh, you don't know that
don't know
old
the 5
Rakim
pillars
album? Okay, so then it's like
can I have a
I don't know,
little
I don't know Rakim. It's like you don't got that.
Rakim.
You don't got that first KRS-One album? Oh, okay.
Dude, I don't know any of this stuff.
That's what I'm saying though. But that's why there's this huge gap that where these jazz musicians think that they're any different. When even in fact, when you talk about like Bird, you talk about Miles, you talk about anybody around those days, those were dudes who were hanging out on the block. The same thing that we're talking about when we talk about rappers today, and I'm good. When they hang out on the block, it's like it's the same thing.
I just feel like with hip hop, and I don't know hip hop all that well. I just feel like it's part of that culture that you have to be over the top. You have to be over the top masculine. You have to be over the top braggadocious,
What was bebop?
or you're not going to be. I would agree with that. I would agree with that with Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie.
Because that's exactly what they try to do. Is
But I mean, I don't know, and I wish we had like a jazz expert. Was that what they were trying to do? Was like to show how technically proficient and like harmonically knowledgeable they were? Is that what it was
That's
about?
literally what bebop was about.
Not just that, but they were trying to take jazz out of the dance halls.
Is that what they
Yeah.
said?
And
Or
bring
like
it into
what-
the concert halls, because there's a difference of enjoying a craft for the art that it is, as opposed to having an entertainment music that is for you to dance and do things.
So when we're talking about that, we could say like we had KRS-One, where KRS-One was very much this conscious rapper. We have Common, who's this conscious rapper, where they I can talk about Common in a different conversation. Anyways, but they
when you say conscious, talking about like social issues?
yeah, social
Okay.
issues, talking about like struggles and stuff like that. And then you have these people who are like Nelly, Tekashi 69, Little Pump, where they're just like, yo,
How
Gucci
dare
gang,
you talk about Nelly that way?
Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang. Oh,
Ride with me?
it's getting
Dude, that is a
hot.
classic.
Bro, he was so introspective. Like his chakras were aligned.
That song brings back good memories for me. That was my freshman year of high school.
But I mean, it's the dichotomy is still there, where you sit here and you listen to these jazz musicians who went crazy and like try to be over the top, and then some of them who just wanted people to dance. Louis
Jazz
Armstrong.
musicians though? Like are we talking about bebop?
Bebop was the whole, like, I would say, like, the idea, like,
Anti-dance. Like,
it was anti-dance. But then we think about like Louis Armstrong.
oh, for sure.
We think
Count
about
Basie.
Count Basie.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So then we can compare those to like, hey, this is just Nelly. This is Tekashi 6ix9ine. This is like, hey, we just want to be either ratchet or just have fun. So the parallels are there, but jazz musicians want to be like, hey, we've been around longer, so we have no relation. It's like, dude, have you ever listened to Mystical's rhyme schemes? Have you ever listened to Redman's rhyme schemes?
Yep.
And you try to
Is
transcribe.
Mystical still in jail?
Nah, he out.
Oh.
But I mean, you listen to their rhyme schemes, and I dare you to transcribe those. You're like, dude, you're like, what? You could use that for so much shit. So that's my problem. That's it. I totally forgot my point, but I'm there. We're here.
I think we were talking about our issues with jazz musicians.
I think there's a lot of things. I think the idea of academia kind of like ruins a lot of things.
You know what? In this, Claudio, maybe you can kind of speak to this. I never understood the whole vibe of like, if you go up to a jam session, especially a jazz jam session, you'd be like, you know what do I want to play? And you're like racking your brain because you don't want to call a tune that's not quote unquote hip, as the jazz bebopists say. You don't want to call a tune that's not like, you don't want to call what's one like Cantaloupe Island. That's not hip, right?
Right.
You don't want to call Cantaloupe Island. You don't want to call Watermelon Man, unless it's played the Herbie Hancock Headhunters way, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a few others that you don't want to call. You don't want to call a Satin Doll. You know what I mean? So you have to rack your brain. But why is that? Why can't you just, you know what? Hey, I want to play Cantaloupe Island and I want to do it like this. I personally, like, there was a time I was considering moving out to Austin, and I went to the Elephant Room, and I went to, it's not in there anymore, but it was called the Brass House. And then I did the same thing in Denver when I was hanging out with our boy Elijah. Shout out Diamond Empire Band. We went out, him and we went to jam sessions together, and I felt that same pressure. And then I always kind of like rebel against it because I don't want to be like, oh, like I'm, I don't want to fall into that category, but it's like, why is there that pressure that you have to call a tune to be, and that goes in line, like you have to seem on, like you're on their level of sophistication. But I could be wrong with
Let me ask you something.
Sure.
What was of the earliest memories of jam sessions that you had?
That
Stu?
pressure. Oh, Stu?
Like what jam session? I'm speaking more specifically.
I would say my earliest jam session memories were Sundays at Seasons. Those were like my earliest ones because those were co-sponsored in the Mexico Jazz Workshop.
Nice. Okay. All right. Do you remember like who the band?
Well, that's how I first met.
Bands?
That's how I first met. And case in point, that's how I first met Steve Figueroa. Is because and maybe a lot of this is
that's how I met Steve too. Not at Seasons, but at the jam sessions.
And maybe a lot of this is self-imagined, but I felt that pressure. He's like, "What do you want to play?" I was like, "Can we play?" This is literally one of the first things I ever said
What
to
did
Steve.
you say? Do you remember?
And I was like, "I want to play Summertime in D minor." And he goes, "Okay." And I was like, "I know it's an easy tune. You're probably laughing." And he goes, "We ain't laughing at shit." So I was like, "Okay, so maybe it's in my own head."
So exactly, this is the point that I was just about to bring up because it's something that I personally have dealt with as far as the relationship with going to a jam session and asking the band to play a song that you might not think is cool.
For those that don't know, we've shifted topics to jamming session etiquette. Continue.
So the Scalo jam session on Tuesday night was my first recollection of going to jam sessions.
Did you ever feel that pressure
To
call a tune? Especially with that
pressure-
crew that was involved with that jam session?
The idea of calling songs at jam sessions was something that really had to do with, I think, voices inside our own heads that spoke to saying we're not good enough. And at least for me personally, I'm specifically speaking about me personally on this, is that the relationship of going up to a jam session and calling a song and it not being good enough because of the looks that people gave you or because of,
The looks you thought you perceived.
Exactly. It was something that for me personally, from going to jam sessions back in 2009, 10, 11, 12, before I was 21, I think I turned 21 in 2011. And I remember the experience totally diminishing when I went to New Orleans. And the reason...
The jam sessions, dude.
Just in general of going up and calling a song that might or might not be hip.
Hip by whose standards?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That was the question that totally threw me off and made me realize that, you are free to be whoever you want to be. And
absolutely,
going to jam sessions and feeling the pressure of performing and living up to a standard is something that all of us do because we believe that bar is set that high. Maybe or maybe not, but undoubtedly, me personally, I set that bar for myself way higher than I really wanted it to be. I set that bar for myself of saying I want to be a jazz musician. And when I went to New Orleans, I realized that's the farthest thing from what I am.
Because there's some bad dudes, and then you start hearing...
Not just there's some bad dudes, Ryan, you're totally right about that, but there's also some motherfuckers that grew up playing and coming from the history of their fathers were jazz musicians, their mothers were married to jazz musicians, or...
So they live that music, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and not just that, but their relationship to the music was much more profound than... It was something that they picked up, studied, and thought would be an adequate career for them to follow.
And that's what you felt like your approach, your history with jazz was like?
My history or my relationship with making music, because I came up through the institution of music. And there's always that question of what means, what's the means to an end here? What are you doing this for? And that's not a bad thing to ask or to come to, but going to jam sessions and calling tunes has the same pressure as, why is it that you dedicated your life to 4 years to this degree,
But don't you never once felt like anybody from any of your peers when you were doing the jam session, you never felt like because of the tune you called, they already had preconceived notions in their mind of how you were going to play?
Undoubtedly, but once I started playing more in sessions and once I started hosting more jam sessions, because I started hosting jam sessions at that Scallows Jam. Stu would be out of town, and it was around the time that Stu and his wife were moving to Malaysia, which is where his wife is from. And Michael Glenn would text me. Oh, man, that was like my favorite thing was feeling the emotion of, like, on a Sunday or on a Monday getting a text from Michael Glenn saying, hey,
acoustic bass.
You want to
currently resides in Portland, Oregon, right?
No, Seattle, Washington.
Seattle. That's right.
He's Seattle. I thought he was Bay.
No, Seattle, Washington.
He was, and then he moved.
He was in San Francisco, but he's originally from the Bay Area.
He's a bad dude.
He's living back out there.
Bad dude.
Amazing. He's probably the person that taught me the most of all of the musicians that I came in contact with as a young up and coming jazz.
You told me that before,
musician.
bro. And earlier before this podcast, we had that conversation. It's like you guys have been like.
Man, I'd love to tell you
ingrained with all these people that have been telling you like, yo, this is my belief in music. I never got that.
It's being a rhythm section player. It's what Artie was saying earlier. Being a rhythm section player allows you to realize the responsibility of your role in the musical setting. Because there are so many musical settings for a bass player, for a drummer, and for a guitar player. There's not as many for a trumpet player. And so that experience of having someone say, hey, man, you need to play that harmony underneath that ballad because me playing the bass notes is not enough. And you're the one that has all the chord, all the strings to be able to play those extra chords, those extra voicings that bring out the harmony that a piano player would. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so
I've always wanted that. I think that's like fantastic. Like,
so of course, in some aspects, I'm sorry that you didn't, you know what I'm saying, have that experience as much as me and Artie did, but getting your ass whooped was about that.
I mean, as a bass player, that's pretty much like the only other person who's getting the ass like handed to them more than me is probably the drummer. Because we're both the foundations. So
from the band leader or from each other or from
yes.
All of them.
All of the
because everybody wants a solid ground. So at the end of the day, it's like everybody's either looking at me going, hey, pocket, or looking at the drummer, pocket, yo, fill up this groove, do this, do that. So we're getting the most commentary.
So how do you feel, like, do you guys look at, so you say you look at how you interact with the drums, how you're interacting with the singer, the harmonies, Claudia, that you were talking about to the bass, like how do you guys factor that in when it comes to horns?
Yo, so what my relationship with horns is the idea of playing melodies and the idea of improvising, because horn players have a way. I mean, I'm telling you personally from my own experience of of learning. I mean, even from learning from when you were a senior at Mazzano and I was a freshman, and you hired me for the first couple, paying gigs that I'd had, or not paying gigs or whatever they were. The relationship with a horn player was learning the nuances of how to play melodies and improvising, because they weren't troubled in the same way that a guitar player or a piano player is by harmony. Bass players are in a totally different way, because they don't have the role of laying down harmonically the foundation for a trumpet player, for a saxophonist, or for a singer, or for all of the above to work on top of. The bass player does as well. I'm not negating or saying that the bass player doesn't have as much of a responsibility. The bass player has even more of a responsibility, because the notes that he plays, the single notes that he plays, mean way more than all of the 3, 4, 5, 6 notes that I can play.
Don't they, like, it all works together though, right?
It undoubtedly does.
It's supposed
but
to
I'm
be
saying the value of his one note equals about the value of my 3 or 4 notes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But your 3 or 4 notes comprise one voice, regardless of how many notes.
One chord, undoubtedly. But what I'm saying is that as a chordal player, you learn more about how to support, in a sense of harmony, and in a sense of voicings, and in a sense of movement. Yeah, of how to move along the harmony for the trumpet player or for the singer to sing the song in a way that makes the audience dance or move or tap their feet.
Interesting.
And so being a rhythm section player is something that for me growing up, I had the opportunity to, and I sought out those opportunities. This is also a reason that I was talking about why I started the podcast, because this relationship of going and speaking with other musicians who can teach me something, like Peter Mall, an amazing drummer who's played with amazing musicians since he was, younger than us professionally. It teaches me about how I can be a better musician, as well as how I can make more of a living by being a reliable instrumentalist, And so more so than, I guess, to get back to your question, I know I'm veering off, is that
it's the IPA.
I would take the opportunity to learn from horn players by taking lessons with them. I mean, I took lessons with Kanoa Kalahiva,
he's a bad dude,
with Lee Taylor, with John Rangel, with all kinds of different chordal and harmony and melody players that taught me about and influenced me to more so think about how I played a melody that I thought was mundane and was what was written on the page, as opposed to how I could, ornament the melody in a way that is beautiful, that only someone like a trumpet player would think about, because all they have is the melody. You know what I'm saying? When I'm playing a chord melody of a song, I've got all this other shit I'm thinking about. When you're a piano player, you've got all this other things you're thinking about, and you're not holding out a note like a trumpet player can, or a saxophonist, or when you're blowing and crescendoing into a note from very quietly into very loudly. It's like that is undoubtedly something that only a horn player can do. And so the idea of learning from a horn player and from taking things from a horn player to be able to learn how to better be a chordalist and how to better be a musician is something I take from what I initially said, which is melody and improvisation.
So I got a question.
All right.
And hopefully it's kind of like building off what you were talking about with relationships and how you react to other members of the band. Mm-hmm. Whenever I go to a jam session, I feel like the bass and the drummer, usually, like, there's exceptions to every rule. Yeah. But I feel like almost to their detriment, or to the detriment of the soloist, if we're talking about like a straight ahead jazz setting, or even like in a genre other than straight ahead jazz, but the drummer and the bassist like lock into each other, and then everybody's about the rhythm section. And I feel like, because I felt this personally, like it pushes the soloist into a state of high energy too long. Like ideally, like everybody should be reacting off of each other, but I feel like the majority of the time it's just like the bass the bassist and the drummer are like trying to be like, yeah, man, like I got you, like I'm vibing off of what you're doing. And then like the guitar kind of follows along, and I feel like the soloist gets left to the dust. Do you guys ever encounter that, or is that just
no? I mean, my mentality as a bass player is that first and foremost, we have to, me and drummer and keyboard player and any other harmonic instrument, chordal instrument, like we need to make a foundation for you. What I find more than anything else is it's hard to find a drummer or the rest of the rhythm section to react off of what you're doing, because we have to listen to what you're doing and go, okay, well, he's doing this type of melody. We need to go down. We need to go up. We need to work with him. So it is following you. It's being active listeners. And that's the biggest thing. But yeah, for like a big misconception with a lot of bass players or bass player and drummers is that if you have like a great drummer or a great bass player you're playing with, first thing you do is when you get to a solo, you go, hey, we get to loosen up. We moved past the head of the tune. Now let's have fun.
interesting? I've never thought about it that way.
And I would say that's kind of I won't say a lower level, but like that's a level where it's like, yo, you guys are worried about each other, when it's like, oh, that's the person talking. That's the person giving the speech. Yep. We're the people who are supposed to be the active listeners.
Right.
That's all we're supposed to be.
Supporters.
But how come at the jam session it always goes to this like super energetic, like it always peaks to where like you feel forced to like, oh man, I got to do all these notes. I got to do these high things. Like I would say 99% of the time, like it starts off, you'll be, soloing or whatever. And then you kind of take it slow and then you start building and then like they build. But I feel like all the times, like, why does it always have to go from 0 to 100? Why can't it just like sit there, cruise at like 45 and just kind of take that vibe?
I mean, that depends on the situation and the musicians.
The situation and the musicians. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I think it can.
But don't you feel like the majority of the time it does that though?
It often does, because people feel, at least for me personally, I feel like people feel like they have to go to that 100% because
they're trying
their
to
listeners.
impress.
That's right. Their listeners are going to be impressed when they go all the way out.
Bro, that's something that's so bad for me that I try not to do every time I go to a jam session.
Point in case, without mentioning any specific names,
Ryan Montaño.
is when some horn players, maybe say it's a saxophonist, and that saxophonist comes into the session and all of a sudden goes totally berserk to just make the audience crazy. Maybe it's someone who's playing congas and they go freaking nuts just to get the audience crazy. But what does it do? It makes the audience go crazy. And so
it's not a bad thing, is what you're saying.
It's fine for what it is, but it is also, in my opinion, that part of that, maybe it is an insecurity, maybe it isn't, but it's a part of us that wants to go there to show the people, yo, I'm taking it there. I feel that pressure, but I feel it in a different way because I'm not peaking on every song. I'm not sitting in on the songs and trying to peak, even though you do feel that pressure when you show up and you're just trying to play one song. Why? Because you're trying to impress the people around you and hopefully turn some ears to get you a little bit of work.
So that's not a bad thing for you?
In my opinion, it's not.
Interesting.
And in my opinion, whenever you do go to 100%, I hope you're doing it tastefully. Although often for me, when I'm going 100%, I've only really honestly felt it the most when I was playing it in the salsa band and playing with the Sugar on Top Funk band that I played in. Was when I go crazy is I tense up and my fingers aren't able to really execute the ideas that I want to play. And so going crazy for me and going 100% has always been something musically for me, speaking about our weaknesses, it's something that I got to work on being able to do, because once you get to 100%, you got to keep it at 100% for a little while.
I've always looked at that as like a bad thing though. Like, because to me,
I don't think it's a bad thing.
It can for me personally, it takes the music from an intention and a motive of truth and honesty, and what do I bring to the table of like, okay, at least because I've been guilty of it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm above it, but there's been time.
But can it be both? Can't it be you going to 100%? You doing it authentically? Because there have been moments when Artie and Logan and I play, and we are authentically going to 100%, and we also just get loud and crazy because that's how we like to play. But is it wrong for us to have gone there because we felt like going there? And I
think it's wrong if you're trying to impress other people.
That's exactly what I was about to bring up. For us, it wasn't a sense of doing it for the impressive manner. It was that we felt the song needed to go there. That moment, needed to go there.
If it's honest, hell yeah.
And
but
I've gone
feel
back and heard some of those recordings where that just it just was part of the experience. So why not at a jam session, when that is something that you experience as a listener and you're a musician, you want to get up on that stage and have that moment too.
Right. And I'm
so
not
that
right.
feeling of seeking, going to 100% is going to be something that's apparent in the year if it maybe happened.
Well, I'm not saying why not. I'm just questioning the intention that goes behind it. If you're going to approach it with an intention of like, man, like I want to get more applause than this person, or I want to be, if there's like two guitarists, I want to get more applause than the guitarist.
Yeah,
Because these are things I've been personally guilty of doing. However, if it's like, nah, man, check out this shit I've been working on, and I'm gonna blast that, and then you guys start like, oh man, I really like what's going on, and then you guys vibe to it. Like, yeah, if it comes from a place of honesty, and then that's awesome. But for me, because I've struggled with it personally, and I feel like 90% of the time it goes to that point of trying to show off for the sake of getting applause.
Well, it's telling the story musicians. Too. It's the soloists telling their stories. So like, it's my job to follow you. So if you start layering in more density, you start layering in more harmonic ideas, you start going into 16th notes and all these things, what I'm picking up from that is like, yo, let's go. We go. You want to go up?
But what if they don't though? Because like, so the majority of the time that I practice along to like one track that's like pretty much the same consistency every time. And it's like, if I start doing busier, I don't want to feel compelled to keep going higher and higher and higher.
I feel
what if I just want to hang out in that vibe and just kind of do my thing around
Think about the analogy of speak. If you start speaking faster and you start speaking louder and your inflections go up, what is my interpretation if we're having a conversation? Is that you're getting hype. So it's like, if you're doing that and you're like, oh, yo, I want you guys to stay down, that's kind of like mixed signals. If you start going dilly dilly dilly, and I'm like, oh, okay, well,
but okay. So say they start giving you all the fast stuff, like you were talking about using the analogy of the conversation. What if they give you the fast stuff, but at the same time they would like you to just keep doing it? They want to like interject it in certain parts. They want to stay that vibe. Like they're not ready to go up.
Well, it's still kind of the phrasing of it, because I'm not gonna I'm not gonna react like automatically as soon as you go. I'm gonna go up. It's gonna be like. So
it all depends. It all depends on the musicians and the situation.
It does. It really does.
Right, because undoubtedly, when you are experiencing the effect of another musician on the stage, when you're at a jam session, lighting their solo on fire and wanting to go there, but they want the band to stay still and for a second just stay still so they can start going crazy and tease them, exactly like you just said. There is undoubtedly that desire of the band, and I feel it as an instrument, as a chordalist, that I want to go crazy with them. So I start going crazy with them, and sometimes too prematurely. Why? Well, really, because at the bottom of my gut, because I'm thinking about the time of, that they are spending playing that solo, how many courses they're taking, how many other people need to get up and sit in as well.
That's true. As a band leader, right?
As a band leader, I'm thinking about that, but I want to go there. And so sometimes there are musicians that are able to keep the vibe going. Like when I'm playing with Artie and Logan, then they keep the vibe going so that you can start building, and then they start, you know what I'm saying? Once you really, really get cooking, besides just light igniting, you really get cooking, then they really bring it up. So it allows me as a chordalist to start going crazy with you, but then have the oomph of the energy come up when they really join in with what you're doing and lighting the end of those last couple of choruses of your solos into an amazing climax.
By the way, we're mentioning Logan Miles Nix when we say
Mr. Logan Miles.
Logan Nix, man. Proud of Logan, dude. Killing it, dude. Touring all over the world, playing with established artists, worked his butt off. Got to give it up to Logan. I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Artha, do you got to go?
In a little bit here.
Okay.
All right. Whenever you got to
Jam session etiquette. Ooh, hello, Medi.
All right. I want to ask Artie something.
Shoot.
Dude, you jacked my question. That was my
speaking
spot.
about, I have to. But speaking about, creative things, because this whole podcast is based around, it's called Art Talk Music, but it speaks about creativity. And something that the three of us have shared in is composition challenges in under an hour. Or in an hour.
2 hours.
Yeah. An hour. We did it in an hour.
It was 2 hours.
It wasn't 2 hours.
2 hours.
I think that was 2 hours.
Was it 2 hours?
Yeah, I do like an Instagram thing where I do an hour challenge.
I know,
like every other day.
And you do that shit.
Those
all
are
the
fun
time,
to watch, bro. You should keep doing that, man.
Yeah.
Seriously.
But what and
glad
follow?
somebody- yeah,
what is
glad
it?
somebody-
Don't stop.
What's your handle? What's your Instagram handle? So people.
What is my Instagram handle? I think it's
All right. While you look these up,
Artha
IG_PIN
What I'm asking you about-
696969.
what I'm asking you about is the creative process of how it is that you work on ideas. I mean, from inspiration, from a beat. I mean, you and I were talking about this because when I go on the road, I've been taking recently my monologue with me and using that as a MIDI synthesizer, MIDI keyboard control stuff on GarageBand to try and make my own beats that go with some of my guitar songs, compositions that I'm working on. But what I'm asking you is, when it comes to writing songs and composition and your idea of working on shit, what is your process? I mean, where do you come from?
Specifically, though, not just like where your inspirations come from, but like how do you freaking pick up and start? Like you start on bass, pen and paper.
Yeah, because you play all the instruments, so
I play all the instruments.
Dude, you're a good drummer too. You're gonna be my next drum sub.
like a Steve.
Thomas Primsit can't make it.
Shit, yeah. How about
Yeah,
me,
just so people know, Artie did win drum competitions when he was younger.
Did you really?
Yeah, I won the 94 Rock drum off like 2 times and got
What?
That's what I'm saying. Come on.
How old are you in this?
Yeah, I was probably like 25.
Yeah, I hate you.
23, 25.
Dude, you're like the seriously, you're like the best musician I know.
And then now I refuse to play drums in public. You don't want that.
The first time I heard you play drums was you were showing Paul how to play a part at one of our rehearsals, and I was listening. I was like, "This motherfucker
Can play the motherfucking drums.
he can play the drums and he can play the guitar."
There was a time where, check this out.
Have you seen him play racquetball, dude?
How exciting. I haven't yet. How exciting was it that fucking Logan had at his studio? He used to have the studio, this music space called Lesman's.
Ah, dude, I wish I could have hung out
I
there
know,
more,
man.
dude.
I had a lot
That's
of
kind of
wonderful
funny. It's kind of
experiences
weird that you weren't a part of that crew
know.
at that point.
Well,
there.
I
You were doing
was,
some,
but
so you were doing some work with Logan still.
because Logan did a lot of like my
You were in
mixing
LA.
and
Oh, yeah,
and recorded
yeah,
some
yeah.
stuff. So that was the only reason I was there. I was never there for the hang because I was, I don't know. That's a big regret of mine, to be honest with you.
So what I'm bringing up is that where was I going with this? Logan.
We were talking about Artha.
So Logan would open up the space to me and Artie playing, because really I met Logan through Ryan. We were doing a recording session over at
Ryan.
Shepherd Studio. You motherfucker. You motherfucker.
I didn't know you were talking about me. I thought you were talking about someone else. Dude, those
were
Shepherd Studios.
doing a
the
recording studio
sessions, dude.
at Shepherd Studios where Chuck Lucero was the engineer.
Sorry,
and
guys.
Logan's playing drums. Cool was playing bass. Who's playing piano?
Michael McDade.
That's
Michael
right.
McDade, of course it was McDade.
That's right. And so,
Bro, those turned out so good, dude.
I know they did, bro. Although you kept recording those songs, which times until they came out, which Ryan's got
I
some
know.
amazing music. Y'all should go check out.
Yeah,
Both of
I mean,
these
for real.
That. I've
bad
tried to record
motherfuckers
it.
have music that you need to go check out, which is
My
Citizens of
iTunes.
Tape City and Ryan Montaño. And what I'm getting at is that through meeting Logan at the recording session with Ryan, Logan and I started jamming, and he opened up his space over at Lesman's, and I'd heard about Artie because I was playing with a local ska band called Made in Bangladesh at the time.
What?
Joey Santiago.
Right, with Joey Santiago.
Sean.
Sean, that's right. Yeah, what was Sean's last name?
It was super thing
I
super
forget
easy
Sean's
too because
last
we're
name.
friends on Facebook. Sean. His Facebook is like Sean Patty.
Aaron War was the bass player.
Aaron War.
Caleb was also
David
Trujillo was
Santiago.
playing
St. James
other
Art.
guitars. Yeah, that's
on
right.
trumpet.
David Santiago and Tony
Rinaldi.
Rinaldi. Was
Danny
on trumpet.
Moreno played with them for a little bit.
That's right. So I was playing with the band, and they all talked about, specifically Caleb and Joey were talking about Artie. Like he was this motherfucking bass player that only played with bands that he wanted to play with. And it was like, what?
I made the cut.
What? So like, you mean to tell
Took
me
a
like
few
he's a
years.
great bass player that picks and chooses who the fuck he plays with?
Yeah, I was an elitist asshole.
Do you really do that?
Asshole.
So you really did that? Like you chose?
I mean,
I do
come
that
on
all the
now.
time. That's not a bad
but yet
thing.
The story was before I met him, and he told me himself that when he was going into music stores and playing the bass, sitting down, he'd have people walk up to him all the time and be like, "Can you join our band, please?"
Was that a business
We need
strategy of
bass
yours?
player.
No,
We need a
it's
bass
just
player."
like I would skip school and just go to the music store and jam
Yeah, some
because I was
John
like,
Mice
oh,
and shit.
Dude, that's what's up. That's such a good story.
because I wouldn't go. I'm like, oh, I can't go home because like either my dad or my grandma were somewhere around. So I was like, fuck that. Drive to the music stores and
and just play.
Dude, that would make such a good short story.
That's
Someone
tight.
that skips his freaking high school to go play.
Yeah, that was like the geekiest shit on the planet.
Talking
Dude,
about geeky shit. All right, just a little side note.
Let's make a short film.
Is that John Maestas
used to do the same thing, and he used to go transcribe like Wes Montgomery.
That's exactly the story I was about to bring up.
Yeah, see, here, funny enough, here, full circle. I used to skip school and transcribe Stanley Clark and Primus. And he used to like skip and go transcribe Wes Montgomery.
Right.
I'm like, oh, god damn it, dude. We're the same types of geeks. Once again, we're referencing our friend John Maestas.
John Maestas would literally
Bath
skip
Records.
the whole day of classes.
Uh-huh.
We were in Bible lit together our senior year. We were in jazz band together, and he would ditch the whole day to go transcribe Wes Montgomery. He'd come for jazz band and be like, I was like, where were you for class this morning, bro? He's like, I was at the park, man. I was transcribing Wes Montgomery.
That's what's
Bro,
up.
And to see someone with that drive of ditching school to go.
I go to
dig
grandma's
on
music.
it.
They knew
Yo,
exactly who I was.
tight.
They'd be like, oh, which bass today?
Speaking of grandma's music, may they rest in peace. I'm so sad that music store closed. That's where I met Artie. It was at a clinic. I can't even remember who was playing, who was in town.
I think it was like Brian Beller or something.
Yeah, someone was in town.
How long ago was this? What year?
This was how many years ago was this? Shit, had to have been 9 years ago.
At least.
Damn,
At least
we're
9
getting
years
into the decades, homies.
At least 9 years ago. Yeah, because I graduated 2008. I was playing with them in high school, but
You
that was
graduate?
after
Oh,
graduation.
high school, 2008.
Yeah. And so I met Artie and he was walking out, and I was like, "Hey, are you Artie?" And he was like, "Yeah."
Are you Artha? Are you the Artha Meadors?
Yeah, exactly. And it went down like that. And then we started, and where I'm bringing this story back, full story, because this is a long story, is that we started jamming over at Logan's spot over at Lesman's, and the one time that Artie had finally sat down at the drums. Logan had 2 drums set up. It was like Wayne Krantz when he was playing with that bass player who was
Tim
also a drummer.
LaFay?
No, not Tim LaFay,
Nate
but
Wood.
Nate Wood, that's right.
Yeah.
He was playing with Nate Wood and Keith Carlock or some other drummer at that time that he was touring with, to where it was like drum, bass, and guitar, right? And they would play trio, and then the bass player would switch on to double drums. So it'd be double drums and guitar. Woo. And Artie and Logan gave me that pleasure at one point, which was fucking amazing. And it stemmed what I ended up doing later on my album, The Story of Part 1, released through Bubble Bath Records, which has double drums on it for 2 songs. And so, yeah.
And so for you, said the purpose of the double drums was just a wall of sound. Like I was trying to
my God,
understand.
yeah.
The
Oh my
first
God,
person
it's a
I saw
wall of
that
sound.
do that was Roy Hargrove on RH Factor.
He did it.
Was he like the first person to do it?
Allman
No.
Brothers were doing that shit for
Allman
years.
Brothers was.
Why?
You know
Why
who
were
else
they
did
doing
it?
that?
You know who else did it? Stan Getz did it back in the day.
believe
There's some
that.
videos of Stan Getz doing, and talk about Memphis guitar players. There's a Memphis guitar player. I'm spacing his name right now, but
Elvis Presley.
no, Bobby Blue Bland, who had 2 drums playing with him at his show on Beale Street. I forget what famous club in Beale Street on Memphis, but that idea of double drums is just a wall of sound. Allman Brothers absolutely did it, and what trickled down to me and what affected me most to make me say I want to do this was listening to the Tedeschi Trucks Band.
Yeah.
When they came through town. Before that, when I was listening to them before they came to town, but when they first came to town, that was one of the best shows I ever saw live, and it was because there were 2 drummers and brother playing pretty much the same thing, just supporting each other on playing on different parts of the drums, but working on the same groove to make it as fat as can be. And the only thing I can really relate that to and tell you that it was like was when I played in Enjoy, which was a Cuban salsa band. And
Dude, they were so bad. I wish I could have
legendary-
appreciated them more while they were here. Like, what a fucking Cuban treasure.
With Yosmel and Josiel here, oh my God, that band was amazing. With Mariano
Yosmel.
Morales, Brian De La Fe, and Miguelito. I mean, that band was tremendous, man. Playing with that band taught me so much, but what it taught me about was how to hold my part, because I was playing the trumpet part. And where I'm getting at with this story is playing with Enjoy, this legendary drummer called Changuito, who's an incredible, famous, Cuban legend who, invented a rhythm, was staying over at Brian De La Fe's house where all of these guys were staying. Yosmel and Josiel, or not, Josiel at that time was already playing with other bands and stuff because he might have already had moved to LA at that point. But
He's a bad dude, man.
these guys put on a show, and it was right around Halloween in 2012. And Changuito played timbales as well. So it was Miguelito playing timbales with the bass drum. It was Brian de la Fe singing and playing congas, and then he would switch over to bata. And he wouldn't just play bata, but he would play bata in a way that no one else. It's a traditional Cuban percussion instrument that is used for religious santeria.
Do you sit on it, or what do you?
It's a stick.
You can
right?
sit on it, but it's also something you can play on. It's a two-sided drum.
Oh yeah.
So he would play it in a way where he had two bass drum pedals set up to where he was playing two of them on the ground, right? They were facing out, and then we'd have two of them underneath him. So he'd have four heads underneath his right and left hands.
Oh, that's what's up.
So he had 6 heads he was hitting. He was doing some awesome stuff with bata.
And he was
so he would play
sound like...
He would play bata. Miguelito would play timbales and snare drum and bass drum and stuff. And Changuito would also play timbales. So just imagine, just think about playing it amidst all of that percussion. The beat automatically got so much fatter. And that relationship with, thick rhythms making you move that much harder was something that ingrained in me. And so from then to seeing it in Tedeschi Trucks Band to playing with Artie and Logan when we did play that years before, and even hearing it in jazz settings. I mean, I remember hearing it on a Joe Lovano album. Joe Lovano did an album with Esperanza Spalding, and he had 2 different drummers playing on it. Great album. I forget who the keyboard player was or the drummers were. But that inspired me to want to do double drums. And anyways, the story of part 2 is going to be pretty exciting, and I'm recording it this year with Artie and Logan at some point this fall, this summer. Yeah, I'm pretty excited for that.
Can I be a part of it?
Hell yeah, you already are, bro.
I want to play.
You don't even know it.
Dude, I was actually thinking about seriously calling like Steve Figueroa right now. Or putting out a post on Facebook asking if someone wants to come over and play some jazz. Like some standards on the...
Look out now, bro. Getting inspired on the spot.
No, seriously. Like, just listening to you guys talk about how you go into like Logan's studio and stuff. Like, I just want to jam right now.
Speaking on that, and what was pretty trippy was writing a lot of music with Artie and Logan, because Artie and Logan provided me the opportunity to break out of my shell of feeling like I had to play quote-unquote jazz and be a jazz musician. I mean, my first love for the guitar.
We don't play jazz.
They don't play jazz. They're not really jazz musicians in any capacity.
Come on, dude. You seriously can't play jazz.
Even though Artie plays a mean fucking bass, he can play and hold his own on any song.
We play Softways in the Morning Sunrise. You sound really good.
I mean...
But he's not an upright or traditional bass
Okay, put it
player.
this way. I like...
Which is not bad, but...
I love the progressive idea of jazz. I love the knowledge that jazz provides and kind of the options that it gives you, and just the idea of like, I love the idea of punk. I love the idea of jazz. When I say jazz, I mean improv. I mean the idea of pushing this forward and symbiotically, like in the moment, going somewhere. When I say punk, I mean doing something that's abrasive and something mean. So not just the technical term of it, but just kind of the all-around term of it. So when I say when I walk around and I say I'm a jazz musician, that means I need to know the real book from top to bottom. That means I need to have an upright bass. That means I need to do this. So no, I don't fit into those criteria that a normal person would say jazz. But now, do I know it? Do I appreciate it? Do I listen to it? Absolutely. Do I love the ideas of it? Yes. I just don't, I have too much respect to give myself that title.
Right, no. And I feel that with a lot of music.
I had the same idea of like punk. Like I love punk. I love the idea of it.
You've always had a lot of loves of music, and that's what was inspiring. Talk about inspiring for me with playing at that studio with Logan, was that Artie and Logan brought totally different worlds together, but they connected through their own relationship of music, which was, what would you even say it was? Rock?
Me and Logan, we're really versed in a lot of things. We're very familiar with each other's style because we grew up together playing in kind of like the screamo scene in the local, garage band.
What were those bands back then?
I was in Falling Process. That was my band, screamo.
Was that during the time of like Your Name in Lights?
Yes, a little bit later, and Summer's End. And around Your Name in Lights, I was playing with Old Man Shattered. He was in Sunset Gun. I forget the band before. One for Hope. No, it wasn't One for Hope. Dang, he's gonna. No, it wasn't Rupert Slane.
Are these bands still together today? Or
No, none of them. Absolutely.
Back in the
Back in the day. But I mean, it was the idea that me and Logan. He
10
was
plus years ago.
like me and Logan knew each other because like Logan was like easily the most proficient drummer in the scene, and I was like the most proficient bass player. So we would go to shows with each other.
Yo, just like see each other.
Yeah, we see each other on the side of the stage, be like, "Oh, I see you, bro." And he do some crazy double bass thing, and he'd be like, "Oh," then I go play. Then he'd be like, "Oh, I dare you," and I do some crazy slap thing, and he'd be like, "Oh, I see you." So me and Logan had to, and then we were like, up until that point, like I couldn't name another musician besides me and Logan who made the transition from like a garage band setting to like a variety band setting. So me and Logan were like the only people I knew at that point where we knew what was going on at the Launchpad and all these original underground bands and all these, hardcore acts and all these rap acts. But then we knew that we need to go play Bad Mama Jamma at the casino. Right. And we knew how to play.
You got to make money.
Yeah. And we knew that, we knew how to play some Grateful Dead tunes. We knew the jazz tunes so we could fill in. At that point, we were the only two musicians I could think of that were doing that. So when we got to the point of jamming with you, it wasn't an idea of like, oh, well, how are we going to gel? It was an idea of like, oh, well, what are you referencing right now? Right. So he would play a drum beat. And I'm like, oh, okay, you're feeling it that way? Dude, I was thinking like At the Drive-In second album. And he'd be like, oh, yeah, I feel that. Then he'd play that. Or I'll be like, oh, yo, dude.
They'd always be like on their own wavelength and be like, yeah. All right, cool. And they just like go into some shit. I'd be like, cool, whatever.
He'd be like,
this makes me sad.
He'd be like, oh, Paul McCartney, dude. Think Paul McCartney. I'm like, oh, yeah, you right. And so like we had
experienced that with someone.
And we just had this really big connection where we just had like a lot of like. We just had a lot of knowledge of things. Like
it was a lot.
Yeah, and we knew all the same type of metal bands. We knew all the same type of jazz artists. We knew all the same type of pop artists, and we knew enough to cover those.
So go ahead.
I was just gonna say, man, like just hearing you guys talk, like it just makes me realize how badly I wish like someone like Logan or Logan himself could be in our music scene.
But I have to disagree with you because I couldn't be happier for what Logan is finally.
I'm not saying I'm not happy though.
Been able to do, and yes, I would want him to still be in our scene. But man, the most we could wish for each other is to be able to make not just a living, but to be able to make the connections that can allow us to make a living for the rest of our lives.
Right.
Because it's not just about nice gigs and living in town and making ends meet. Right.
Well,
your soul has to be satisfied creatively.
Not just creatively, but you also have to be creative, or you also have to be satisfied in your aspirations in climbing up the so-called ladder. Because the Pink Flamingo gig, no offense to the Pink Flamingos, has been around for a long time. And it's the same gig. You know what I'm saying?
It's terrible.
I mean, I have different reasons for Logan being gone. One is unselfish of like, yeah, he's doing well and he just needs to move on and he needs to find that another level.
Right.
Feeling is higher out in the world.
Right.
The other thing is kind of a self-inflicted thing where I'm like, dude, yeah, I got too comfortable with you. Like, we know too many things together. We have a lot of things in common. We can jam together. We know we can sit on these gigs.
Right.
One of us needs to go so we can grow. Because if I keep playing with you, we're going to be on this level forever. So
that's also a part of why I've always encouraged people when they feel like they need to move out, that they need to move out. Because, when you need the total reset, go find that. Because there is no other experience like going out to another place.
Those times, yeah, dude.
And so like that reset of having to go make connections,
right? But
having to go stick your face out and having to go be whoever the hell you are because you're not in the town that your reputation precedes you.
Well, it's just change. Like, none of us grow unless we change. If we played with the exact same people we did when we were 15 and nobody made a point to be better, like actively wake up every morning to be better, you don't get better. If you get comfortable.
It's true. That's so true. You can say that again.
But check this out. Like, okay, so everybody leaves Albuquerque. How many amazing musicians have we had that have taken up residency, like Justin Ray, Kevin Hayes.
But think about where they would
John
be.
Maestas.
John
But think about
Maestas.
just think about where they would be if they were still in town.
Luis Guerra.
We all know what the ceiling is.
But I'm talking about not the way it is, but the way things can be.
But
so it's
you
like,
gotta
what if
think-
all of those people were still here?
But you
think
gotta
of
think
all
what
the
you-
amazing art
But you got to think what
in
you
the
can.
community we could be building.
You know, you're right. You're right, and I think there is a place and absolutely a space for that here home. Albuquerque is its own beautiful scene, but man,
It gets me frustrated with the lack of resources, bro. I'm so frustrated by that.
No, I don't think we have a lack of resources. I think
I don't either.
For sure. For certain types of players,
as well as
for
men,
gigs.
I have to say that I'm happy for those people having moved out, because
Me too.
had they not moved out, then they would not have been able to have set up the lives that they have now.
Right.
Justin Ray wouldn't be in a place where he could settle down in Asheville, North Carolina, and have a beautiful family.
the way
and be able to play.
the reality is now. But I'm talking, like I said, I'm not the way things are, but the way they ought, the way they should be.
the way
Like
they
how
should be,
cool,
yeah.
bro?
There's-
How cool?
there's
Just
a
like, just
slow
hear me
build to
out.
that.
How cool would our scene be if John Maestas had his thing going on, Kevin Hayes still had his thing going on, Justin Ray? So yeah, Justin Ray goes on to tour with
Right.
Michael Bublé and tour
Right.
the world. That's his reality now. But
Right.
what's to say if we keep building that and we all kind of make the effort to come together? I mean, ideally,
What peak is
how
there?
different his
I mean,
reality
even,
be?
Hold on, but even think about other musicians that are living in other cities. You think that they're making a living in those cities and playing just
No,
in
they're
those
making a
cities?
living touring.
That's
I
what
would
I'm
say
saying.
a lot of them, or
That's what I'm
songwriting.
saying. So the idea for any musical act is to be able to be recognized on a much bigger scale.
Right.
And so your point of hoping and wanting everyone to be able to still stay in this local scene with progressing and becoming a recognized person is a beautiful aspiration, but it's also something that people know you can climb the ladder much easier in a city where the ladders are actually available.
And
Where
I
the
guess it
band,
comes- right.
where the bands can actually hear you and say, "Oh my God, that guy can play trumpet. Let me bring this guy on the band with the Michael Bublé band. Let me. Oh my God, that guy plays great. Let me hire him to play every single gig in New Orleans, and eventually him be inspired enough to start a record label. You know what I'm saying? So like
I hear what you're
the
saying.
idea of other people moving is for their own personal growth. I mean, everyone has to do it at some point, even if it ends up being them moving back. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with
But
that.
like
but I'm
in the
just saying,
example,
like,
going
I
back to
feel
what
like,
we're talking about of Logan is like, Logan he's in Europe right now,
right,
with a gig that is still connecting him to New Mexico.
right.
But before that, he was traveling all around the States, and before that, he was traveling in China. He was going all over the world traveling with an incredibly famous guitar player in the guitar world, and he wouldn't have gotten that gig had he stayed in town.
Which could with
John
John
Five.
Five.
John Five.
Right. I'm saying, but that's this reality now. What if we had something where that's Ryoban's
agree.
reality now?
Yo, I agree.
What if he
I'm
created
not saying that
something
we can't.
here that got fire on the internet? I'm saying, if there's
I'm not
like
saying
the
that
more
we can't.
creative resources, the more awesome art and creativity comes out of it.
But you have to use the people that you have here. I mean, we can't live on the idea and bank on the idea for people to stay, and that's what it's going to be.
Yep.
What we have to do is build up the community the way it is and be like, okay, well, guitar player A, you're like, yo, you don't know how to play gospel, but man, hey, I came from this spot in Nashville or this spot in Memphis, and there's this crazy guitar player. Listen to this guy, and you build up your own scene, and so we can build up the scene that we want. So we don't. I don't think it's the fault of anybody moving. I don't think it's the fault of anybody staying. It's our responsibility. If we want the
and it's-
world, we kind of have to
that's
use our
right.
community to build it.
But
we
isn't
have
part of
to-
that responsibility building the community?
But
Yeah,
it's individual.
It's
individual, and it's something that each one of us has to cultivate for ourselves, and we can't.
For sure.
we can't say we spite these people because they didn't stay and do that, or we hope that they would have, because I mean, like, how's that going to push it forward in any way? The reality is that like when you openly say, this is where the scene's at today. You know what I'm saying? There could be another jam session on Thursdays. There could be this. There could be a musicians union, whatever. I'm not saying that there has to be, but I'm just saying the hope and the aspirations that we all have for what it means to be in a musical community is something upon ourselves, and we each need to take initiative.
How many musicians?
What?
The point I have to make is kind of long. How many musicians live in a city other than Los Angeles or New York and still find ways to tour and to get that that fame and that recognition that they're looking for.
I mean,
Why not
Phoenix,
Albuquerque be one?
Denver.
Yeah, why not Albuquerque? One of those things. I feel like for a lot of people, they have to set up shop somewhere. Why not set up here? But I feel like a lot of them, it's something that they want to escape from, rather than be like, hey, let me build my musical roots here. Because that's something I feel like I want to do.
Sure.
Is like build musical roots and help other people, and that's something I make an effort to do every day.
Right.
But I feel like a lot of people, they're just so ready to get out of here, rather than like create like, okay, I plant my plant here, and I'm going to water it, but this water is going to go to your plant as well. It's going to pick up the roots from the neighboring seed. Like, why not that mentality rather than I'm going to like dig up my plant and go put it in the nice neighborhood across town.
Well, I mean, number one, going to like a different city, it's not all glory because, yeah, I mean, you think of the bigger cities like LA, Austin, all that. You spend time there, you realize that you're up against
Some bad dudes.
And yeah, so you have
not just some bad dudes, but some dudes who have been playing in the scene for so many years that they have got those gigs clamped down.
Mm-hmm. And they know all the people.
They can let them go.
And that's fine. But I mean, I don't know.
I just want more of that for Albuquerque.
I see it different because there's bands from here that tour internationally, and they're still here. Right. I think of Ryan McGarvey. I could think of the Handsome Family. I could think of Otmar Liebert. I can think of Frank Maribal. There's plenty of people who are touring worldwide and doing all these things
and still living here.
And they cultivate it here. So your idea is alive and well.
Right.
But it does
really for Albuquerque.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But we were just talking about how like you felt the same way, how the pool is not deep. So you like it that it's not deep.
No,
like to me, that's a big problem.
No. I think the problem, I won't say the problem with Albuquerque, but one of the situations that I've run into since I started playing and I started gigging and I started, going across this world of being a musician is that you can't be one thing here. It's impossible. You can't just say, I'm a jazz bass player. It's not going to happen. You are not going to just pay all your bills that way. You're going to end up teaching. You're going to end up doing this. You're going to end up playing a couple bluegrass gigs. Me as an electric bass player, it's like, okay, well, I play gospel. I play jazz. I play this. I play that.
And salsa. And newly added to the resume. Bro, you kill it. You kill it.
But it's just the idea.
Artha el bajista.
That's why you're doing men's voices. Homie called up. He's like, dude, I need a salsa bassist. I was like, you got to call Artha Meadors. And then they asked for a guitar player, Claudio, Paul. And then it messed up rehearsal schedule, but whatever.
No, we're not going to get into that.
But the point being, the point being is that you can't be just one thing around here. And so...
Can you do that in LA? Be the one trick pony?
Yeah. You know what? A good friend of mine... he shall go unnamed. I don't know. I just don't feel like it. But he was in New York, and he said one of the coolest things I ever heard in my life. He goes, I make my life being the fourth best. And he goes, like, what do you mean by that? He goes,
damn.
You're in New York, bro. He's like, oh, that kid who plays drums, his family played drums. His dad's a legendary drummer. His dad was a legendary drummer. So you're not going to beat him. The second guy, same story. Third guy, probably not. Fourth guy, you might be able to hang. So you're that fourth call. He's like, oh, so he made his life. He's like, oh, yo, I was the fourth call jazz guy. Fourth call jazz guy. Wow. I was the fourth call reggae guy. But to go back to say like those first three guys who were like the first call bass players, the first call drummers, first call trumpeters of jazz, they make their life off of jazz. Here in Albuquerque, you can't do that.
Nope. It's not
exactly. So like that's the whole point is like build these pockets to eventually get to that point or make it a cool enough scene like or like hear me out or to make it a cool enough scene.
No, you're missing the point of it. You're missing the point of like what it means to be in Albuquerque and what it means in New Mexico. This is actually the most
the culture, like part of the culture, right?
No. It's the most positive thing about it is the fact that I do think about it as a black male. I get to play rancheras, I get to play country, I get to play gospel, I get to play jazz. And I get called for all of these gigs. In any other city, if I was in a certain culture, I may get pigeonholed and just play that one style. Right. In here, I get to test out every style of all of them. And I kind of have to.
If you want to make a living.
So you're saying that the musical opportunities for growth here are better than they are in a place like New York because there's so many and you can't really get into that scene unless you live the music. Am I understanding that right?
No, what I'm saying is that right here, you have to expand your mind beyond what your scope is. Other places, you can live in a world. I have plenty of friends who live in Chicago, who live in Memphis, who live in Alabama, and who live in Texas, and the only thing they do is gospel, to the point of they don't know who police or who Sting is or the police. They just live in gospel world.
Yep.
And that's all they do, and that's all they want to do until the day they die. Right. That's probably what they're going to do. But either A, you could say they've been pigeonholed there, or they chose to be in that, but they get that one lane. Here, I don't have that option. I couldn't just say, I'm going to play gospel, because the circuit here is not big enough for that. So then I have to spread myself a little bit further and be like, oh, okay, well, I don't necessarily listen to country, but dang, I'll learn some, I'll learn this, I'll learn that. King George, yeah, I'll learn that. Salsa, I'm like, okay, I'll do it.
So basically, you're saying that the Albuquerque music scene is that it's a good, solid one, and that there's nothing like, because I mean that's kind of what spurred on this whole conversation. It's like, yeah, you have all these opportunities for growth in Albuquerque because you have to be versatile and do all these genres. Whereas if you go to another city, you can kind of specialize in that one genre.
Uh-huh.
But to me, the fact that so many people leave is kind of like the proof in the pudding that maybe having that diversity is not enough.
There's a lot of people who move here too.
Right, but in terms of like musicians that, you know what I mean, that stick around.
Yeah.
Like I'd say you're one of the staples. I'd say Claudio's one of the staples. A lot of the people that we all play with, but it's like one of the biggest regrets is that because I had kind of the same guys for so long, I never got to experience the way certain people play. Like I was thinking about, I would go to the jam sessions and Luis Guerra was there on bass. Do you remember him?
Oh yeah.
Bro, I'd love to that was way below my musical maturation process. Like I wasn't hearing those things that he was doing. I'd love to hear how he plays, you know what I mean? And how like maybe we could have created like a really cool project together. Not only him, but like even Justin Ray, like or someone like Kevin Hayes. Like, man, I want that so bad. And it's like, did they leave because they couldn't find a relevant life of making music?
I have to tell you, the thing that I'm noticing is that these people had to go find this other life for them and for their families. Specifically, those two gentlemen that we talked about, which is Luis Guerra and Justin Ray.
Right.
Had they not gone and found those places,
right.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to support their family. And so that's a part of going out and finding another city that can bring in the work.
I hear what you're saying, bro, and I agree with everything you're saying. But my whole argument is that why not make Albuquerque one of those cities where they can find those opportunities?
And it still can be, and it's always going to be their connection.
Or they just may want to be specialized in something in a certain thing.
Or they just want to move to a different place and make a living teaching at the school there, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
I mean, Justin Ray has got a gig at the University of North Carolina, Asheville.
Oh, nice.
And so I'm not saying him, I don't mean to point him out specifically, but I'm just saying that relationship of everything is. But we're gonna go ahead and take a little bit of a pause. I gotta
call Steve Fig.
We gotta lose one gentleman. Mr. Artha Meadors is gonna leave us. So
that was a great first podcast, homie.
Yep, thank you for having me.
We'll be right back, Mr. Montaño and me. And we're back.
Artha Meadors had to leave our wonderful conversation.
Always said when
the
you
legend Artha Meadors. Homie says he's leaving in September.
I'm happy. Like, I agree with you when you were talking about, like...
I need him for the 4 gigs I do a year.
Yo, when musicians leave and, like, you're bummed out that people don't stay and cultivate. And people talk about... who talked about that was this Argentinian dear friend of mine, Alejandro Pais. He has a wonderful brother that had a radio show that talks about that. And he said, why do other great musicians, when they, when they get amazing to their best, they leave? And, I mean, I can understand the lament... But there's also a sense of being really happy for them.
Ain't no doubt about that, homie.
We're all looking for the nugget. We, as musicians...
Our slice of the pie.
We're all gambling. And so we need to go...
make our own pie.
Yo, it's hard to have that perspective, though. You have cultivated that for yourself. And it's been an amazing thing to watch. And that's why I told your dad the other night at the jam session that it's inspiring living with you, bro. Because, when you go about seeking out your career the way you want it on your terms, that's more powerful. I mean, you are taking the power in your own hands.
I I feel everybody can do that though, especially here, like especially, and we talked about when we were playing with Jonathan, like that's another reason why I like Jonathan Rodriguez and I respect his project.
Sure.
Man, because he's trying to like make shit happen for himself, and he's trying to hustle, and he's trying to get gigs, and they're his tunes, and it's his brain.
With that at that?
Like, and I love that, you know what I mean? So he's trying to build his pie, and he's doing a damn good job of it. Like, you're building your pie. Like, what if we have all these pies that come together and make this one ginormous pie from which everybody can then have a slice? But I feel like before people, you know, they do the dough, they do the filling, you know, but instead of putting the toppings on and then throwing it in the oven, that's when they leave. And then that's when, you know, their pie doesn't get made. And it's like, so their pie, they go finish their pie somewhere else, like in Los Angeles or New York, where those other where all those other people put their pies. And I'm just saying, no, let's make this place the place where all the pies reside. In my pie analogy.
Speaking of pies, man, I was playing a gig this past Sunday with a local singer named Raven, and
Raven?
Yeah, and we had.
Do I know Raven?
You might know her. I'm not sure. She's a blues singer around town.
What's her last name? Or does she just go by Raven?
Raven is the way that I know her. I forget her last name. But
was that in Madrid that you were doing?
No, we were playing at the Nexus Brewery.
That's right. That's because I saw that on your Instagram stories, and I was going to text you. I was like, "Oh cool, man, who are you playing with?"
It was a fun gig. Cool was playing bass.
I saw that because he was on your Instagram stories.
And this guy named Britt Alexander was playing drums. He played great, man.
So I've never played with Britt. How?
I liked it. It was cool, man. It was grooving. You know, we didn't play much jazz. We kind of swung out a little bit, and it was cool. You know, I would have loved to have done it more. So. Yeah, man. But the reason that I bring that up is because she was also a vendor over at the wine festival. This happened this past weekend.
Selling her own wine that she brewed or that she fermented?
No, she's selling her own pies that she makes. Sweet potato pie lady. And so I was sad. Anyways, I was a little sad that we didn't get to... She had a little emergency with the whole pie business and the food truck down there. And so she had to set up a gear, and we were supposed to play at 2 and didn't play till 3, but it was all good. You know, I was just sad that I didn't get that pie, man. That's the reason I brought that story up.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, what's up?
Can you update me on the status of your second CD?
Man,
since you've been dragging ass on it?
Absolutely, I will. Most definitely. Yeah, so I released the story of part 1 officially worldwide in November of 2017.
I remember because we played that shit on my iPhone, dude. That was sick, dude. That was a cool moment I shared with you, dude.
Thank you, bro. I'm very excited about that, man, and very proud of it. And it's available through bubblebathrecords.com as well for anyone out there that wants to check it out.
Spotify, iTunes.
Anywhere that people can listen to music. I always tell people, you know, how you listen to music. I think Pandora is the only place that I'm not, which is something I got to work on getting done. But
if you go to my iTunes right now, press the home screen, you press Apple Music,
this guy,
and then you go to your library, and then you type in Claudio Toulouse.
There it is.
And I have your single, and I have the story of part 1.
That.
So, dude, I must say, the thing about your CD that I'm most, even when, do you remember the first time you played me your demos? It was in the parking lot of Ben Michaels.
That's right. I do remember it was in a parking lot, yeah.
Right. I think you just got the mat. I don't know if it was a master or the mixes or whatever it was
from the studio in New Orleans.
And I was like, bro, like those grooves are just like, they're so cool and they're original. And I don't think there's anybody that's doing your style of guitar music with a band and then singing on top of it in a combination with the way your song's writing, man. I think you have something really special. So like, yeah, man, like when we had talked about, you know, putting some stuff out for you for radio and stuff like that, bro, it's like we could write it a certain way that might work for radio, but at the end of the day, I said just like put out you and just see where it goes.
It's about being you. Yeah, you're right. You know what I'm saying? Being you is more important than finding your own voice. Is more important than going out and making music that you think people want to hear.
Do you feel like
it took me that long? I think because I had to find what I really wanted to hear.
But it didn't take you that long, did it? I mean like how old were you when you put it out?
I'd wanted to make that album since 2012.
And then you put it out in 2007. So when did you start recording?
Really, I wanted to, like, my honest, actual, realistic, what I thought at the time goal was 2013. And it didn't come out till 4 years later. Officially, I released it independently in December of 2016.
Was that 2016 at the Outpost?
Isn't that crazy, man? At the Outpost Performance Place, you played.
Bro, that was a year and a half ago.
Isn't that crazy?
Whoa.
Yeah.
That was a good concert, bro. You guys sounded so good that night.
Thank you so much. You sounded great, too. I appreciated you playing on that concert, man.
It was an honor, dude.
What I'm excited to share with you, my man, and to answer your question is that the album, the story of part 2 is coming along. and with our guest that just left us, Ryan. Artie is, he's one of my favorite electric bass players in this area.
Bad dude, man.
And creative people that
That's what I like the most, his creativity.
That are so creative that they inspire you to do your thing. And man, what I didn't share with the stories that we were talking about that place Lesbians, was how many songs we wrote together where he would show me the guitar part. Not just jump on double drums and do some badass shit, but he would show me, he'd be like, Leo, let me see that guitar. And I'd be like, what? What did you just play? What? And so Artie and Logan will be a part of the next album, and it's something that I'm writing.
Is that Story of Part 2, or is that like a precursor before Story of Part 2?
Man,
it's like the prequel.
It's going to be the next
Story of Part 1.
It's going to be the next thing I'm going into the studio for. I'm still up in the air as to whether or not it's going to be the Story of Part 2 officially, but it's definitely going to be my next release, because the Story of Part 2, part of me wants to finish those 2-3 albums with the band in New Orleans and with those guys. Mm-hmm. But part of me also recognized that you got a pie to build. It's not just the pie that I'm building and making, but it's my initial idea of why I called my first album The Story of Part 1. It's because there's a story of Part 2 and Part 3. And because my initial idea for an album was compiling 3 different bands together to try and tell the listeners who I am. You know what I'm saying? And so undeniably the electric trio with Artha Meadors and Logan Nix was going to be one of the groups. The other group was a select amount of musicians that ended up being on the Story of Part 1 out of New Orleans. And the other musicians are musicians out of New Mexico that are Latin musicians and doing an album in Spanish. And so that's not Enjoy, is it? Or who is that? It was going to be members of Enjoy, exactly. Yeah.
Damn. Mariano?
It was going to be Mariano. It was going to be Yosmel.
Piano, bass.
It was going to be Miguelito.
Congas, percussion.
And he was probably going to do both. Yeah, exactly. Woo. And so that's still up in the air as to whether or not it's going to happen. But that was the idea for recording the initial album. So to answer your question, the Story of Part 2, or at least the next effort of my own original music, is going to come out within the next 6 to 7 to 8 months.
I'm going to say this publicly.
Yeah.
This is an offer.
Yeah.
If you need any horn lines, dude, I will do it free of charge. Seriously, like.
Yo, I appreciate that, my man.
For sure. But no, that'd be cool, man. So. What's happening now with Story of Part 1, and how's kind of like the marketing and how's kind of like the success of it? How's that been going?
I appreciate you asking, man. So it's coming along nicely, man. I waited to release it officially worldwide as far as iTunes and things like that because of Bubble Bath Records, which is a record label, and it's an independent record label started by my best friend John Maestas out of New Orleans. And when we talked about initially releasing my album, the process of a record label putting out an album takes about 6 months to put out. And so be it as long as it took for me to register, because they encourage, which is wonderful about the record label that I'm part of, they encourage you to have ownership of your publishing company and registering your song through copyright or through
they have you register through copyright?
They encourage it. Absolutely, man. It's something that you and I have talked about, and you talk about the legitimacy of it. But it's something that I've done and something that I've been encouraged to do through Bubble Bath Records, and I'm grateful for it, because guess what, bro? I own my music, and I own the sound recordings of all of my songs. And if my songs ever go up anywhere, then I can go about finding compensation for that stuff. And that was thanks to Bubble Bath Records. And
right.
I released it with them, and it's been doing good as far as Spotify numbers, as far as iTunes, and as far as it's been making very small amount of money. And that's the reality of it. Ever since I initially released the album, like I told you, December of 2016, the majority of my sales have come from selling CDs
Physical
at
CDs.
Concerts. Physical CDs at concerts. Yep. Especially when you get that touch of getting to sign a CD. And so through Bubble Bath Records, I know that my album itself has gotten thousands of plays through the different platforms, and on individual platforms. But you know, and I'm really excited about that and grateful for that. And know
That's
that
what's up, dude. And deservedly
by
so.
traveling, thank you, man. By traveling a little bit and by spreading my music and playing in different countries, I've gotten a little bit of play in some other places. And I look forward to doing that with the story of part 2 and the story of part 3, and eventually putting some stuff out in Spanish, you know. But it's little by little, my man. You know how it is. It's all like a dream that you know in your head how you want it to be, and you have to have it perfect. You can't release it.
But do you think that chase perfection could be kind of to our own detriment? Do you think that
it is? It is.
Like,
but to counter that, what I'm grateful for with my record label is that they just require that within a year I release a work. It doesn't have to be an album, an EP. It can be a single. And so that's my plan for releasing something through Bubble Bath. And initially when I talked about doing something with Artie and with Logan, it was going to be the 3 of us. So it wasn't even going to be released under my own name, so that we can, you know, be creative and not have it necessarily be all my own songs, because the 3 of us write songs together. But I mean, you know, it's all still up in the air, my man. And as the months come and as the visions get clearer, you know, the path will unfold.
Right, but listening to you talk about, you know, the story of part 2, the story of part 3, and then, you know, eventually releasing something in Spanish, it's like, bro, those are some things that I really want to hear now. And it's like, man, like, and I tell you here because I'm in that creative space as well, whereas you want to create something and you want to write something and it has to be perfect or it has to follow this vibe. But it's like, man, like how much stuff could we be contributing? You know what I mean?
It's so true, man.
If we just do it, you know what I mean?
And in my opinion, man, you have to release it when it's right. I mean, there are people that are so prolific that are putting stuff out every 6 months. You know, every year they're putting out new stuff. And I admire those people. But you also have to embrace what your situation is compositionally and
they're in that creative space of 6 months, and then
they're in that place of having written songs for the story of part 5, 6. You know what I'm saying? And so they're way beyond where you and I are working as far as our paces because of our other loves. Like I brought up, you know, Peter Mall earlier, but Peter Mall is an amazing drummer who's played with so many people. I look forward to having him on the podcast. And he talks about having other loves. And when you have other loves, man, it opens up your world to, you know, using that musician's attitude of totally embarking on being a sponge to what music is and what you can do with music. And it also distracts you that much from music. You know what I'm saying? Right. So like you have that with videography and photography, which is something you're so naturally, or not naturally because of the degree you have, but
it pisses me off.
You have such ability to make a living doing video and all this other stuff, which is not artistic. And I also do other stuff. You make money. Come on now. Let's not get it
I'm
straight.
saying it like video is artistic. Absolutely.
Oh, without a doubt, as well as photography is, man.
Absolutely.
And what I'm doing is creative as well, which I'm, you know, very happy to be doing that as opposed to having to make money doing what I used to do, which
Starbucks
I love doing, which is waiting tables or working as a barista or whatever it is.
And if that's what you're doing to make ends meet, and that's like totally cool.
That's fine. That's fine.
It's also a blessing at the same time that you have other avenues of opportunity to make money and not just music.
Yeah.
So could we talk about jam session etiquette?
Bro, let's talk about jam session. Let's talk about whatever you want to talk about.
This is what I want to talk about.
All right, let's talk about what you want to talk about.
Can I preface it with a story, or is that pretentious?
What you got? Tell us the story, my man.
Okay, this is actually twofold. The first time I went to Denver and I was with Elijah, I was like, hey, bro, I want to go hit up some jam sessions. One of them, so I'll give you the two questions. One of them at the jam session, it was like this gospel drummer, this white dude who was like a rock guitarist, but also was doing like rock guitar tones over jazz licks, which sounded fucking awesome. Mm-hmm. And this old school gospel bass player, like fat dude, he sat on a stool. He was badass. Yeah. And I was just standing there right at the front of the stage and I was digging it. So I pulled out my horn because I wanted them to call me up. And then the guitar player, he motions and he like get up on stage. I talked to Elijah after that and he's like, hey man, like I was like, hey, is that a bad thing to do? And he goes, well, hey man, listen, like you shouldn't go up unless you're called. Do you believe that's what jam session etiquette should be. You don't go up till you're called. Because to me, I just wanted to go up and I wanted to be a part of that musical vibe. But I've been shunned for that on more occasions than one because I do that a lot.
I'm gonna have to say that yes, I think that you have to respect the space of what the band on stage is doing and where they're at, because all they see is a person that wants to get in on it, and that's not a bad thing, but it is that energy of like wanting to join in. And I've had that experience happen many times, and for many years I've pushed it away. You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember this specific story of playing at this club downtown that used to be called Jazz by the Way. We were talking about earlier before the podcast, and a lady walks up who's a piano player, and mid-set of me playing, I think with Michael Lavola and Fernando Garavito or someone like that, you know, she says, "I'm a piano player, can I sit in?" And I was just like,
do you suck?
that's what I'm saying. The first thing that pops into my mind
But
is,
what's wrong with asking me
I don't
that?
know.
I ask them that all the time.
No,
I always go
no,
like,
there's
if people
nothing
come
wrong
up to
with
ask
that.
me, they're like, "Can I sit down?" I was like, "Are you good?" And they'll be like,
if they're confident, they'll say yes, and then if they're not, they'll say, I'm okay. But
sometimes, I mean,
It's
you
not
could tell, like,
it's
they'll
not
be
even
kind of
about
like,
that.
"Well, yeah, I can pretty much read," like, those are the people who are not so cocky
But
themselves.
as a band leader,
they're
it's
real.
not about being cocky. It's about trying to keep the vibe going for the people all around the stage as well. And so I'm not saying that it
But my
kills,
vi-
but
my
I'm saying
vibe
that
was
you
getting on the
definitely are
stage.
worried that you can kill the vibe by having someone come up that plays like shit. And I'm not saying that you were that
Right,
person on the side of the stage, but they don't know.
It's a
There's no
gamble.
way of filtering. And
So,
you know,
but what if-
I've told you this before of my admiration for the city of New Orleans, which is that they allow you to come up. If you got a horn, if you want to come up and sit up, they'll allow you to, but not on that song that you come up and you're like holding your horn out. You know what I'm saying? They'll wait till the next song and they'll invite you up and they'll talk to you and they'll say, "All right, what you want to play?" You know what I'm saying? Or they'll talk to you. So they'll give you that opportunity of playing. And guess what? Then if you don't play some shit, they can say some shit. You know what I'm saying?
Like, what will they say? So say you go up there and you think like you've been
the word in New Orleans is that they pipe you, which means musically they're shunning you by they're musically playing circles around what you play and telling you like, yo, motherfucker.
So it was so when someone pipes. So when someone pipes you, how do they show that they can play musical circles around you? Like, what do they do?
You're playing the changes and you're playing some whack shit.
Okay, so what do they do?
Let me be more specific.
Do they say we're piping you?
You were playing song. You were playing a song, and the solo that you were improvising.
You're playing giant steps and you're not hitting the
Not
changes.
giant steps. It doesn't have to be giant steps. It could be All of Me, which is a jazz song. You know, fairly simple, somewhat, and you can just be messing up the changes, or just playing some shit that does not sound good over the changes.
Okay.
And you're not building any solo. You're just playing some shit, squeaking and squawking on your saxophone, and then the alto saxophonist that's on the gig gets up, plays some stuff that hints at the melody, plays some thematic stuff that brings in the audience, and plays some stuff that fits with the harmony so beautifully that he's playing a melody that is art. You know what I'm saying?
Does this happen over your solo, or you're done and then he goes out?
You're done and then he goes on.
Right. So I'm just trying to understand, like, when does a musician who doesn't have stuff together know that he's being piped?
Well, sometimes on gigs where someone is hired for a gig and they're playing some changes and they get lost, another musician will come on top of their solo
No shit.
and start playing the correct changes and playing the
So
stuff.
say you're on
Yeah,
your third
that has
chorus
happened.
of Softwares and Morning Sunrise, and you go to
And
the
I'm
B
not
section.
speaking for everyone in New Orleans or for
but you're
every situation.
But you're still hanging
I've
out on
seen
C
it happen.
minor, and then so someone will come on top.
That you know what I'm saying? Yes.
That's cool.
I saw it personally when I was watching the Delphio Marcella's Uptown Jazz Orchestra play, which I believe it's the gig that they host on Wednesday nights, if I'm not mistaken, Wednesday or Thursday nights.
That's so cool.
At the Snug Harbor Club, which is a historic club on New Orleans, Frenchman Street. And man, there was a saxophonist that was playing a solo, and I can't remember if he was sitting in with the band or if he was just playing with the band, and his solo was not happening, but another saxophonist got up right next to him and just started piping,
What did the other saxophonists do?
piping all over him. Playing changes, playing with energy and playing stuff that sounded fucking groovy.
But what did the other
and
saxophone? Did he
awesome.
sit down?
He shut up. What can he play? He knows that he wasn't playing some shit that was good. Excuse me for cursing so much on this podcast, but I'm
Dude, you
just
don't have to
speaking-
apologize. It's real talk.
I'm just speaking honestly as to the situation as it was for musicians, you know, And
Dude, that's what's up. Dude, I want to go to New Orleans.
you got to go. I'm going to bring you, bro.
That's actually, bro, like
We'll
when
make that
things slow
happen.
down, like towards the winter, like I'm gonna do Nashville for like, I think like, you know how I go on my like monthly sojourns where I go for
You
like
think
a
about
month
going to
and a half.
Nashville? Let me
I'm
know.
thinking about Nashville,
I'll meet you out there, bro.
but I'm thinking about actually like just getting like an apartment for like 2 months, like a bedroom that you could rent.
That'd be tight. Yeah, sublet.
Yeah, sublet, exactly.
What?
So I want to do that.
What time are you thinking of going?
Well, it kind of depends what comes through, but
Summer's
probably
hot.
after New Year's Eve,
After New Year's Eve. Okay.
because that's when shit slows down. So
You know they got winter out there too. It can be cold.
it's whatever.
It can be cold.
Nah, dude, here's the thing, because then this is why I called
Yeah.
Steve Figueroa and why I called D now and why D's on his way, is because like, bro, I am so motivated and inspired by jam sessions, like your jam session and D's jam session on Thursday nights. That's like, and then seeing that jam session at the Federal Bar, dude.
Yeah.
Like that satisfied my soul in a lot of ways. And it's like, man,
Yeah.
I want to get something like that. And then going to those jam sessions and you don't know who's going to come up on stage next and what they're going to bring.
Right.
And like,
Right.
bro, I just crave that. And I just want to do that every single night. And can you do that in New Orleans?
You can do that in New Orleans, bro. There are gigs happening every single night of the week. And you, as a trumpet player, if you wanted to go sit in, can go sit in on maybe not every single gig, but almost every single day of the week, you can go sit in.
That's what's up, dude. That's what I
And
want to
a
do.
lot of gigs.
But not even just like sit. I just want to go to a jam session. And it's like, okay, like
Jam sessions are happening all the time over there, as well as in other cities. But I mean,
Just
I
play some
agree with you.
original shit.
I agree with you that it's wonderful to have that in a city, and it's wonderful to have that opportunity to be able to go be creative and make some music with some musicians on a Tuesday night, on a Wednesday night, on a Thursday night, on a Friday night, and so.
Should I call Chris Cushman right now?
I agree. Call of the musicians, round them up, bring them to the house.
Think that'd be too loud?
Nah, I think it'd be good.
I'm gonna
I think
call
it'll be a little late though. The saxophone.
Nah. Oh, really? Should I not call him?
It's 9:15 over here.
But he plays bass too.
Well, he does.
Can I just call him, see what he says?
Absolutely, man. We're winding down on this podcast here. It's been an awesome first podcast.
We're just getting started, homie.
We're just getting
I
started.
have so much more to talk about.
Looks like we're gonna have to get into part 2, or just episode number 2. All right, now here we go. We're gonna take this call real quick.
Wrapping up the podcast.
And Mr. Chris Cushman didn't answer.
Ooh, Chris didn't answer.
I hate it when that happens.
I know. Happens to me a lot.
It's been a pretty awesome podcast, though, man. Definitely
good,
happy
man.
that you came on.
Anytime.
Mr. Artha Meadors came on as well.
Hopefully to many, many more.
Oh, absolutely, my man. We'll definitely keep this going. It's been cool talking about jam sessions, about etiquette, about elite musicians, about what makes an elite musician, about all kinds of
Albuquerque
stuff.
music scene. What can make it
man.
better? Other opportunities.
Sure.
Other
right,
ladders.
Right.
Other pieces of the pie.
Yeah. This podcast is going to be filled with, 2 conversations, 3 conversations at once. Amidst 2 or 3 people. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited that this podcast is off the road. It's hitting earbuds all over the world, headphones and stereos and car stereos as people commute. And I look forward to the next one. Who
Yes,
knows?
sir.
We might even start up the recordings later this afternoon, this evening, this night. Now, I hope y'all have a wonderful, safe day, safe evening, whatever time of day you're listening to this. Be safe. Thank you so much for listening to Art Talk Music. This is Claudio Toulouse. This is Ryan Montaño.
Have a great evening.
And now with us, Mr. Artha Meadors. Thank you so much for listening.